Now, before we get stuck into today's yarn, podcast fans, please let me ask you this. Have you ever been lying in bed after a late shift and you hear that dreaded from behind the walls? Well, you know it's rats and mice having a party and you're not invited. Now, that's where Pestrol comes in. Their new rodent-free Max is a no-fuss, plug it in and forget it kind of situation. In fact, it is the solution you're looking for. And it is safe for you, it is safe for your pets, and there's no poisons, no traps. It is solid Australian technology, and it keeps your pests out of your home. We've got 3. We've got one up in the kitchen, one downstairs, and one out near the barbecue area. You just plug it in, and it sends a message through the wiring of your home, and rats and mice hate it, and they leave. And it doesn't affect you or your pets. Pestrol, trusted for over 20 years. They've got your back. Head to pestrol.com.au or give them a bell. 1-800-338888. Problem solved. Pestrol, Pestrol. You feel that? That nip in the air. The sniffles are starting. Winter is definitely on the way, folks. At this time of the year, I don't muck around. I fire up with Nature Bee's Power Pollen. It is packed with vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, everything your body's screaming out for when that temperature drops. It's helped me stay sharp, healthy, and it helps me fight off that sluggish winter slump. It has been doing that for 20 years. And right now, you can grab a 6-month supply of Nature Bee's Power Pollen for $160. Plus, they're throwing in a bonus month and 2 bars of that famous pollen and honey soap. So before winter knocks on your door, click on the link in the description and get your supply of Power Pollen Nature Bee. Money back guarantee. Big thanks to Nature Bee for powering another episode of Bonafide.
In a world where voices are silenced,
Please.
one man refuses to lie down.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
He's been punted not once,
40 years they've been trying.
not twice,
You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job.
but 3 times.
You're fired.
He doesn't tell you what to think, but gives you something to think about. Welcome to the Bonafide Podcast with Luke Boner. And he's not
All right, here we go.
done
Hold your ears, folks.
yet.
It's showtime.
Well, hello, g'day, and welcome to episode 39 of Bonafide with me, Luke Boner. And I couldn't do it without my partner here, Kelsey, the millennial. Here we go again. Jam-packed episode today, folks. We'll look at foreign affairs, the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell drama. We'll look at a story that will fascinate you. I'm going to talk to Victor White, who is the husband of the now deceased Vilene White, who was now, we can say this, stabbed to death at a shopping centre in Brisbane. The perpetrator, who was a juvenile, was 16 at the time, has pleaded guilty and is awaiting sentencing. And we'll find out in November what that sentence is. But Victor, during our chat, said, you've got to talk to my other daughter, Julie. We've spoken to Cindy, but Julie is the mother of the little girl, the granddaughter, who witnessed all of this. And I don't make any apologies. I get a little emotional when I talk to Julie because I just sort of envisioned Kelsey's grandmother and Kelsey, when she was little, having the same thing happen to Kelsey's grandmother, and Kelsey as a 6-year-old witnessing it, and how you ever possibly get over it. Our good friend, the Reverend Jim Reynolds, spoke to Julie after I talked to her on this podcast and is offering help and ongoing support, and her little girl. But it is riveting listening, and I'm urging you to take the time to listen to the whole conversation with both me, Victor White, then Julie White, and then the Reverend Jim Reynolds. On a happier note, Truckee Tuesday also coming up in this episode. Special guest, Senator Glenn Sterle from Western Australia, who is a truckie, comes from a truckie family and has a lot of insight into this industry and understands more than anybody how government legislation needs to help prompt the NHVR and the Trucking Association in general to come to the party and try and make the trucking industry more attractive for Australian truck drivers. You're going to meet a new sponsor. He's been a mate of mine for 20 years, Andrew Fennell from Pestrol, and we'll have a catch-up with the leader of the Nationals, David Littleproud.
News updates.
Just having a look at some of the news headlines that have captured our imagination over the last week. What about Donald Trump in Scotland for a working golf holiday? But he's got some problems at home, hasn't he? You may have heard that the US House Speaker Mike Johnson said last week he would have great pause, quote, about granting a pardon to Ghislaine Maxwell, while another House Republican said it should be considered as part of an effort to obtain more information about Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. Now, more and more of this is coming out, and the distressing thing for Donald Trump, it's Republicans who are now blowing the whistle on what really happened and what sort of relationship Donald Trump had with Jeffrey Epstein.
Republicans emphasizing the law's provisions like no tax on tips as leadership tries to brush off efforts led by House Republican Thomas Massie to force a vote on releasing the full files about notorious sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
Donald Trump and his allies, including Johnson, have been under immense pressure to disclose more information about Epstein for weeks, especially amid scrutiny over the extent of Trump's relationship with Epstein. And Ghislaine Maxwell, hoping for either a pardon or a reduced sentence if she becomes a whistleblower and names names. She said she's happy to do this. I wonder how many of those names, however, will be Republicans.
The eSafety Commissioner has found that 4 in 10 young Australians have been harmed when engaging with YouTube.
YouTube is making a last-ditch effort to persuade the government not to include it in the under-16s social media ban, objecting to what it says is an abrupt policy reversal and arguing the video service is not a social media platform. Google, YouTube's owner, will host a major event featuring popular YouTubers inside Parliament House this week as a final decision looms on which tech platforms will be off-limits for children. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has voiced concern about content on YouTube, hinting the video platform may be included in the ban and dismissing Google's threat to sue the federal government. Watch this space. And the Albanese government says it's going to introduce legislation this week to cap the cost of pharmaceutical benefits on the PBS. Prescriptions to come down to $25, down from $31.60 from next year. Now, the move was announced by Labor during the May election campaign. They say it'll save us about $200 million per year through the new cap on the scheme. It's probably good news. And Gwyneth Paltrow is starring in a new ad for Astronomer. Almost a fortnight after the tech company's married CEO, Andy Byron, was caught on a Coldplay concert kiss cam. With his arms around his HR executive, Kristen Cabot, Paltrow has been hired as a temporary spokesperson for Astronomer. The 52-year-old, who was married to Coldplay frontman Chris Martin from 2003 to 2016, appeared in a short video on the Astronomer's social media speaking about the company's strengths. Have a listen.
Thank you for your interest in Astronomer. Hi, I'm Gwyneth Paltrow. I've been hired on a very temporary basis to speak on behalf of the 300-plus employees at Astronomer. Astronomer has gotten a lot of questions over the last few days, and they wanted me to answer the most common ones. Yes, Astronomer is the best place to run Apache Airflow.
That, folks, is the best PR ever. Love to get your say, your thoughts. And we've got this voice message from Michael.
Hey Luke, just listening to the podcast about the lady talking about childcare, the blue cards. My wife's just getting back into nursing after a while, had to apply for a blue card. It turned up in the mail, she had the blue card even before the police check was done. It's just crazy.
Thank you so much, Michael. There is a lot more to this than we know already, and it scares me what more has been hidden under the carpet. We will continue to follow this story and talk to more experts about it. And we got this voice message from Matt.
Hello, Luke. Matt here, former serial pest of yours. Mate, I wanted to throw my hat in the ring on this issue with caravans and the courses. One of the things that, if they're going to have a course, they've got to teach driver etiquette. I'm sure Rod could attest to this. One of the biggest frustrations when you're trying to get around someone is speeds up and down like a yo-yo. You know, if you're on holidays, and that's fine, that's great. But have a bit of consideration when you know, if you get to a straight and there's a bit of road, we are capable of overtaking. And if there's a bit of cooperation, and I do it all the time up and down the Bruce Highway, you overtake cars, even other trucks, we help each other around. It's really not that difficult. I see cars and caravans getting tailgated all the time, and the first thing that goes through my head is, yep, their speed's up and down like a yo-yo. Because unfortunately, you've got to sit that little bit closer if you want any chance of getting around. And, you know, being on the logbook, you can get burnt badly if you get, you know, a bit of road where there's no overtaking lane. So
yeah, highway etiquette. And that's not just for truck drivers, it's for all of us. We all need to learn a little bit of that. And I'm going to play that voice message to Rod Hannafy next time we chat for his response. But it's a very, very good point. A little bit of courtesy goes a long way, could even save lives. Coming up on Bonafide, world affairs and the difficult world that Donald Trump is now living in. That's with Dr. Keith Suter. It's next. Well, it would appear that Donald Trump, according to latest figures, he's losing popularity because people are seeing that he's not being completely transparent when it comes to what is actually in the Jeffrey Epstein files. Now, a Wall Street Journal report has added new scrutiny to President Donald Trump's relationship with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The Journal reported that Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell asked Donald Trump and many others to submit letters for an album for Epstein's 50th birthday back in 2003. A letter bearing Trump's name included a lewd outline of a naked woman and an unimagined conversation between Trump and Epstein, according to the Journal. In the conversation, the two men reflect on how they share some kind of secret knowledge about how there's, quote, more to life than having everything. Now, Donald Trump has not denied that he knew and was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. He denies going to the island. And he obviously denies that there's any incriminating file or video of him doing anything illegal or inappropriate in the company of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. But what is the law and what is Donald Trump being asked to provide and why is he hedging on this? The president reiterated on social media that he asked the Doge to release all grand jury testimony with respect to Jeffrey Epstein, subject only to court approval. Trump has lashed out against the very loud voices who have called for transparency since the Justice Department and the FBI issued their July 6 memo regarding their decision not to release any further files from federal investigations into the late financier. It's a very, very sordid and twisted story, and we're dealing here with a man who allegedly took his own life while under heavy guard in prison, and the current president of the United States. And just what is Donald Trump's involvement with Jeffrey Epstein? Political advisor and political expert and foreign affairs expert, Dr. Keith Suter, joins us once again. Welcome back to the Bonafide podcast, Dr. Keith.
Yes, hello, Luke.
Well, this is, as I said, very, very sordid. We'll get to what's happened recently in just a second, but can you take us for a history lesson? What's led up to this, please?
Yeah, so Jeffrey Epstein was born back in 1953 into a New York family. He never completed college education. There have been persistent question marks over how he made his money and how he was able to do so well in New York society. There are all sorts of implications of involving foreign intelligence agencies, which I'll need to mention a little later on. So he left without graduating with a degree, was given a job teaching at an elite private school. He's got no teaching qualifications, but the head of that school was a person called Barr, whose son later became the Attorney General for Donald Trump. And so what we see throughout the whole of the Epstein saga are all these names that keep on appearing, which, if you're on the outside of the New York establishment, looks very much like a conspiracy. In other words, you've got all of these people who are friends with everybody else, and they're all assisting one another. And that's a deep part of the support in MAGA, the Make America Great Again movement. A deep part of that is the suspicion that America and the world is run by global elites and people who look after each other and don't have much concern for the ordinary common person. And so even right from the very beginning, the way that he lands a teaching job in an elite private school in the United States, that raises question marks about somebody without any teaching qualifications getting that job. He then goes on to work in the finance sector. And in doing that work in the finance sector, he is not very well known amongst the finance people. And yet he ends up as one of the richest people in New York with millions, if not $1 billion, stashed somewhere overseas, mainly, rather than in the United States. He lives in one of the largest private mansions on Manhattan. But where did all the money come from?
Yeah.
As I say, he's well known from the society pages, but he's not actually known as a Warren Buffett, a person who's an expert on the buying and selling of shares. He's not known for his work on mergers and acquisitions. So he's known because he's a society person, but he's not known by the actual people who make money in New York. So there is this question mark over how he actually makes this huge amount of wealth. They're still trying to wind up his estate at the moment. Many of those accounts are offshore, and they probably never will be. The money will be repatriated back into the United States. So there are question marks over Epstein all the way along. Then we get on to the issue that sort of attracts the attention, which is this pedophilia issue and his taste for young women. Donald Trump himself has acknowledged that Epstein had a taste for younger women. That very famous remark that he made some years ago, that they both had the same sort of taste in women, but Epstein prefers them on the younger side. And so Epstein not only was somehow involved with making money in ways that we still don't know about, but he was also involved in supplying young women to very influential men in the US and overseas, such as the allegations made about a member of the royal family in the UK. So he's running this sort of sex trafficking, and that's what he got arrested for the second time in New York, was actually a question of sex trafficking. His first criminal case was 20 years ago in Florida, when he was caught up with a girl, underage sex. The prosecutor at the time was Alexandra Acosta, who coincidentally later on is a member of Trump's cabinet in his first government. You see, all these names keep occurring. They all seem to be linked together. So in the case of Alexandra Acosta, he gave Jeffrey Epstein, for this first criminal case, so 20 years ago, a very light sentence indeed, far less than he should have done. But he was told to go easy on Epstein because of the intelligence connections that Epstein had. Costa said, this is all above my pay grade. We're just going to do a very quick deal, and we're not going to send him to jail for a very long time. There are all these question marks. I don't want to sound like a supporter of Donald Trump and MAGA, but if you are a MAGA supporter, there is enough material here to get you very suspicious about exactly what Epstein was doing. So he's involved in exploiting young women for sexual purposes. The second time around in New York, he gets arrested 2019 for sex trafficking. Then he goes into the Metropolitan Correction Facility. He is sharing a cell with one other person, which is a way of trying to avoid people trying to commit suicide. The assumption is that the other person in the cell will rescue somebody. But that person was removed. Secondly, the cameras that were supposed to be patrolling or keeping an eye on the corridor were somewhat defective, so they weren't working. And the two security guards that had to check on him every half hour or so, they had fallen asleep. And then
all were buying things online and not paying attention. It's unbelievable, isn't it? And
it is unbelievable. So if you're a MAGA supporter, you'd say, look, there's no smoke without fire. There is something definitely odd about it. And the way that he was actually killed, and the bone in the throat that was broken, which led to his death, that is generally only broken if you strangle somebody. It's much more difficult if you try to hang yourself with, say, sheets from a window or something like that. So even his own method of dying, with the bone being broken in his throat, would suggest strangulation rather than suicide by hanging a sheet from a window and trying to do it that way. So there are just so many question marks over how he managed to die.
I was looking online at an interview with a prisoner that was in that particular prison who was actually in Epstein's cell at one point of his incarceration. And he said there's nowhere to hang yourself. The bed's down low. There's no ceiling fan. There's nothing protruding. It's impossible. Yeah. He said it's impossible.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. There are just so many question marks.
The idea is that Epstein was silenced by very powerful people that had the power to have those cameras disconnected simultaneously. The guard's not there, no other prisoner in the cell. It would have taken a lot of someone in a great position of power to coordinate all of that. And so the rumor is, the conspiracy theory is, that Epstein didn't hang himself, that he was killed to be silenced.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And, of course, that then takes us back to a few months ago where the new Attorney General for Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, said that she had a list of the clients of Epstein on her desk and was going through it and we're publishing it shortly. And then, of course, most recently, she said there is no list of clients. I don't want to add still more to this conspiracy theory, but, she's now saying there is no conspiracy. Remember, she is surrounded by people who have made a name for themselves in the last few years since Epstein died in suspicious circumstances in 2019. So they've had 6 years of complaining about a conspiracy, a cover-up. This is all part of the deep state, this global elite that have a taste for young children. But the head of FBI, Pascal, is one of these people. He's made a reputation on this, and he's now saying, there is no conspiracy. The problem is for Donald Trump and for his supporters comes from that old Chinese saying, he who rides a tiger usually ends up inside.
Yeah.
And that is the risk that now is run, that they've whipped up over the last few years all these fears about pedophiles running the world, a global elite, etc. And now suddenly they're saying, perhaps that's not the case. You can't turn off public support just overnight with one media statement, and particularly as a media statement that went out over a weekend and not with any names on it either. So there's a lot of hostility towards Donald Trump and some of his supporters who, like Pam Bondi, like the head of FBI, who have made a name for themselves, talking about a conspiracy, now saying there is no conspiracy. And this is a really big challenge for Donald Trump now as to how he's got to try to find a way of deflecting attention onto some other issue. Otherwise, this is just going to continue to eat away at his support base, because clearly you can imagine some of his own supporters saying, well, he's now become captured by the deep state.
And, of course, when Donald Trump is questioned about Epstein and the files, he dismisses it and says those people who ask those questions are just troublemakers.
Yeah. And the troublemakers were members of his own support team. Yeah, so it's a really difficult problem for him. We know that Trump was friendly with him for about 15 years. Then there was a falling out, probably over property. But there's certainly some sort of falling out between those two. But there are a huge number of photographs of Epstein and Trump together. So Trump can't deny that he has been a friend of Epstein in previous years. And so Donald Trump is in a real bind here because, as I say, some of his own supporters, like Tucker Carlson, are actually saying, well, we've got to have more evidence revealed. The other thing which I found intriguing is as you've made mention of, the Wall Street Journal, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, who also owns Fox. So Fox, on the one hand, is whipping up all this concern about a conspiracy, etc., and the deep state and all the rest of it. And at the same time, Murdoch also is looking after the interests of conservative financiers through the Wall Street Journal. And they're running stories that are critical of Trump. So if you like, Murdoch is playing both sides of the street. He's not a Democrat supporter or anything like that, but he's just simply saying that he's recognizing there are obviously two strands of the Republican Party. You've got your MAGA people, and then you've got your wealthy elite and the Wall Street Journal, who've got question marks over Trump at the moment because of the tariff wars and what he's doing to the economy in the United States. As I say, the Wall Street Journal is coming into this act with this alleged card that was sent by Trump to Epstein back in 2003.
It was interesting. This morning I saw on the television breakfast news that Donald Trump says that his popularity has increased something like 98%. And I'd looked very carefully and rewound it and look again. I can't see where those figures come from. I suspect they're Donald Trump's figures.
They are. In fact, the polling is very bad. I think that his big, beautiful bill, which is this mammoth finance bill that he's pushed through Congress and which was adopted on July 4, is going to cause all sorts of problems. What he's done is to ensure continued tax cuts for the rich. He's making life more difficult for poorer working class Americans. Remember, these are his basic supporters. He's ramped up a huge amount of money now for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. They're the people who are rounding up the so-called alleged illegals. There's now more money going to ICE than into the FBI. So Trump is putting a lot of money into all sorts of projects, but some of them might come back to bite him. You know, particularly if you're a veteran, you're now going to lose some of your benefits, or you're somebody who relies on government-provided health care, and you're going to lose some of that in order to provide tax cuts for the rich. He's going to have a difficult year. He's had a year or 6 months anyway of ups and downs. But he's going to have, I think, continuing problems. And who knows what's going to happen next November of next year, when we have what are called the midterm elections. The midterm elections are in the middle of presidential 4-year term. So every 2 years, you get 1/3 of the Senate and all of the lower house up for re-election. It may well be the Republicans will lose some of their support because of Trump's financial measures.
Just to the side, I want to come back to Epstein and how he possibly has made all that money and how he's been able to, with little education in the finance sector, rise to the top. But you know the Joe Rogan podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Joe Rogan, big supporter of Donald Trump. He's been critical of Trump recently about the deportations, human rights, and the lack of Trump's transparency over the Epstein files.
Where's the Epstein files? Boo, can't find them. Don't exist. Like, they can get away with man.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Rogan's lost his top spot on Spotify. He's had a 32% drop in downloads. Look, this is not to say Joe Rogan isn't still an incredibly large an influential person. He's dropped a second spot, but he has dropped since he's been critical of Trump. What do you put that down to?
Well, because Trump does have a very loyal following. Let me just say the importance of Joe Rogan for Trump was that he was able to mobilize young, alienated, mainly white, young males who don't normally have an interest in politics. We've got a real problem with young males in the United States at the moment who are uneducated, unemployed, unmarried, and sitting in their parents' basement playing space games.
Or doing God knows what on their computers.
Exactly. Trump was able to reach into that community and get them to come out to vote for him. That was a great achievement by Donald Trump. And he used Joe Rogan as a way of getting to those young males. But clearly, if you start criticizing Trump, you're going to lose some of your supporters, and that's obviously Rogan's problem. So there are obviously some young men out there who are still good believers in Donald Trump.
Let's get back to Epstein for a second, because you gave us a brief history of his background, and it's quite incredible how he rose to such great heights without much experience. Everyone says he was very intelligent. and had the gift of the gab, was charming. But he had people, the top-notch financiers in New York, promoting him incredibly quickly. Then we move on as he continues to climb, make millions, possibly billions of dollars, shuffle it offshore. And then we see the Little St. James Island, where he and Ghislaine Maxwell were trafficking young girls, and they were being treated in a dreadful, dreadful way. We've seen the Prince Andrew scandal. From what I understand, Dr. Keith Suter, is that the police, when they raided the place, found hundreds of cameras. Everything was being monitored and recorded, every bedroom, every room. Not just one camera, but possibly multiple cameras. The theory is that Epstein was blackmailing people left, right and centre with this footage. What are your thoughts on that theory?
Oh, absolutely. And we know also with his New York apartment, including the bathrooms, they were all subject to these cameras, and there were control rooms inside the mansion that Epstein had on Manhattan itself. As I say, it was a huge building. So yes, and what intrigues me is the stupidity of people like Bill Clinton, who are willing to risk their reputation by indulging in that sort of activity, unaware of the fact that they could be tape recorded and filmed. I would have thought that was quite obvious. You wouldn't put yourself in that sort of situation. That takes us back to this issue of the list of clients, which Pam Bondi had said existed at the beginning of this year and is now saying, no, it doesn't exist. But we know that for people flying to the Little St. James Island in the Caribbean, under aviation law, if you're being flown, you've got to be listed in the manifest, because if the plane crashes, they'll know who's on board. So we can see Donald Trump's name there as a passenger. It's not as if he went out there for the purposes of playing around with young women, but he certainly has flown to that island. People like Clinton had borrowed Epstein's plane for other trips around the world. Epstein's plane, incidentally, had the nickname Lolita Express, and so was flying between the United States and this little island. And so there is this whole issue about who was doing the blackmailing. Is that where the money came from? So you've got all these rich and famous people who have been mentioned, including Bill Gates. It's not just political figures. But this adds to the disquiet amongst the MAGA supporters, that there is this wealthy elite who are able to run the world, and they have a taste for young children. A tragic example of this was what was called Pizzagate. There is in Washington, D.C., a pizza parlor called Comet Ping Pong. And in 2016, Edgar Madison Welsh drove all the way from North Carolina up to Washington, D.C., because he was convinced that that was where a lot of the Democrat pedophilia was taking place, and there was a cellar beneath the store. So he went in there with his rifle to liberate the children and found out there was no cellar beneath the store. So he then surrendered himself to the police and spent 4 years in prison. Tragically for him, he was shot dead a few months ago because he was violating probation. So clearly was somebody with a bit of a mental health issue, but had been wound up by commentators like Alex Jones, who have been able to say, look, there is this pedophile ring that's running the United States with connections with the Democrat Party. And then Dev Patel and others, now head of FBI, have all played into that as well and ramped up all these concerns that people have got. And it particularly appeals to women. So this is, if you like, we're seeing the ability to appeal to particular constituencies. And I understand that all this talk about children being exploited mobilized women supporters in support of Trump because they were concerned about the children. But as I say, we're not getting too much evidence of a paedophile ring, but there are certainly paedophiles. The other thing to bear in mind with Epstein is that he's been the subject of a huge number of civil action cases. So he's had 2 criminal cases, and he died before the second criminal case came to trial. So technically, he was never found guilty in that second trial. But in parallel to this, we've had a huge number of women who have come forward in civil cases suing Epstein or the Epstein estate, alleging that there have been violations of their rights. And that means there's a huge amount of information. Now, this takes us back to where we started with the so-called Epstein files. The files that we're talking about are the files relating to the second conviction, which was back in 2019. There was a grand jury. We don't have a grand jury in Australia. The grand jury in the United States is essentially an anonymous activity, so you don't know who's actually on the jury, and they get to hear all the evidence, and they then decide whether or not there is a case that could be carried forward. And then it becomes a matter, if they say, yes, we think there is evidence there, then it goes to the formal trial procedure, which we would know about in this country. As I say, we don't do grand juries now in Australia. So the Epstein files, if they are ever published, and as a rule, these grand jury trial documents are never published, but if they were to be published, it'll take several months for them to appear, and it'll only relate to the immediate issues of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. It's not going to go back over all the old stuff that we have known about, like, for example, how was he able to be treated so well by Alexander Acosta at the time of his first criminal case? That will not appear. So in other words, that yes, we're focusing a lot on these so-called Epstein files, but they're a very narrow focus. I think the way to deal with this would be to have a special investigator appointed by Congress, for Congress to carry out, as we've seen with other inquiries like the Watergate inquiry, that sort of thing, and just get all the evidence, which will go back over many decades, about Jeffrey Epstein. That would need to be created by Congress. And of course, there are some members of Congress or former members who, of course, might be embarrassed if that were to happen. Not only the current president, but there'd be members of Congress as well. So they might try to block that. But that's the way to go forward. And the other dimension to this, to add still more to our paranoia on this issue, is that Epstein's partner in all of this is Ghislaine Maxwell, who's currently serving about 20 years in jail. What is interesting is that her father, Robert, also died in mysterious circumstances.
Yes.
He either committed suicide by jumping over the side of a ship. He was a very portly individual, so he would have to be a little rather athletic on the night in question. So he either fell over the side of a ship or he was pushed. Anyway, he did die. And so Robert Maxwell himself was a colourful figure. His daughter, Ghislaine, is also equally colourful. And, of course, there would be allegations made that perhaps the Israeli intelligence service might have also been a supporter of Epstein. So they may have a hand in this, in which case they would want to block any special investigator being appointed, because who knows what it would reveal about Israeli intelligence operations in the United States.
If Ghislaine Maxwell is incarcerated and she knows the names, the reason she's still alive, do you think she's assisting American intelligence, or do you think she's just lucky? Because I would have thought when she was put in jail, she would end up the same way as Jeffrey.
Exactly, and I'm surprised that she's still alive.
Me too.
It would be too suspicious to have a second so-called suicide. That would be, I think, the problem. But she's not talking. She's not revealing any names.
Not that we know of.
And I think she's going to, not that we know of, and she may well be hoping, for an early release if she behaves herself and that sort of thing.
Or names and rolls over, then goes into witness protection and then hangs herself.
Or, in fact, she just goes to live in some place with some of the money that Epstein has stashed away in overseas bank accounts.
Now, that was my next question. You clever bloke. Where's the money?
Exactly. Where is it? Much of it is not going to be brought back because it's in bank accounts in tax havens where you just can't get at the money.
But Ghislaine Maxwell knows where it is. Maybe not.
Well, she may know some of it. Yeah, she may know some of it. Yeah. And she may well be relying upon that once she gets eventually discharged from prison.
When you said Pizzagate, I thought you were going to go back across the Atlantic to Great Britain and Prince Andrew, who said when Virginia Giuffre was saying she was introduced to Prince Andrew, who was then His Royal Highness, not anymore, and they went to a nightclub, they went dancing, he was sweating, then they went back to a townhouse with Epstein in the car behind. He said, no, I know that night. I actually remember that night. I was at a Pizza Express with my daughter. Do you remember that? He couldn't remember anything else in that disastrous News of the World interview, but he remembered exactly where he was on the night of the sweating.
Yeah. No, bizarre. And of course, that just adds still more to the suspicions that there are these elite people who are expecting to get away with all their crimes.
So what's the future of Prince Andrew now? He's been stripped of all his titles, all his war records, and that was done by his mother, and he was Her Royal Highness's favourite.
Yeah.
And he's been stripped of everything. He's a laughing stock, except the accusations aren't laughable. They're very, very serious.
Serious, yeah.
And his brother, the king, wants him kicked out. What's the future for Prince Andrew, Dr. Keith Suter?
Difficult to say. He's obviously going to continue to hang around. He's got some money that'll continue to pay for him. As you say, his brother wants to kick him out of his current royal residence. So it must be a very unhappy family for Prince Andrew, who had so much going for him, but just has squandered it all. And remember, he'd had a bit of a reputation with the ladies beforehand.
Randy Andy.
So this... Exactly, and this sort of all fits that sort of pattern. That's his problem.
I feel sorry for the princesses, Eugenie and Beatrice, because they're innocent in all of this, and their names being dragged through the mud. And of course, Sarah Ferguson didn't help with her integrity when she was secretly recorded lining up rich businessmen for meetings and for Prince Andrew to do favours for them. She was caught red-handed doing that. It's disgraceful behaviour, isn't it?
It's disgraceful behaviour, and it just simply adds to the Republican feeling that is in Britain and Australia and elsewhere, that we can do without some members of the royal family. I think Prince Charles is doing all right. He's behaving himself. But yes, you always seem, every generation, you seem to have at least one wayward member of the British royal family, going all the way back to the Duke of Windsor and his taste for that American divorcee, Mrs. Simpson. So every generation you have one that sort of goes off the rails.
Oh, I think they're nothing compared to Henry VIII or even Ferdinand, who was But anyway, look, that's what happens when you breed within the family, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Prince Andrew. He's broke, isn't he? He had to pay in that civil court case about 20 million Australian. I think it was about 10 million, $11 million, £1 million. It didn't go to court. They settled. And do you see that as him admitting what he did? Why wouldn't he? No. Why wouldn't he let that go?
Well, because he just didn't want that evidence to come out in court. That's why they settled. That was the whole basis of the settlement.
Do you think that was
you pay the money and you hope that it goes away? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Expensive, but he had no choice. And he brought it upon himself because clearly he was photographed with his arm around the young woman.
Virginia Giuffre. He said that the photo was doctored and that he'd never met her. Anyway, the $20 million, the 10, 11, 12 million pounds that they paid Giuffre, where did that come from? Because he was broke. I can't imagine the Queen doling out money to protect. Well, I don't know. It certainly would have been outrageous if it was taxpayer money.
It probably wouldn't have been taxpayer, but it would have been some perhaps of the royal possessions that he owns. Because with all these titles, there's a certain amount of land ownership and income from farms, etc.
Back to Trump. Where do you think we're heading?
Well, he's in a real mess at the moment. And what he needs to do is be able to create an alternative issue to get people concerned about. So something on the southern border would be an obvious thing, or perhaps some sort of peace deal in the Middle East or something like that. He needs something to get people's attention away from the Epstein scandal.
He's been trying to get peace between Putin and Ukraine, Zelensky. He said he would have it fixed in a week. It's a little bit more than a week gone by. Do you think he's getting any penetration there? Do you think he will? Because there's even talk of him winning a Nobel Peace Prize if he does it.
Well, he's been nominated. There's no guarantee he'll win it. I think that if he is able to pull it off, absolutely, but he hasn't. The problem is that Putin just knows how to play him. Putin is a very experienced manipulator, and he's made Trump, I think, look a bit foolish in the way that Zelensky also knows how to operate with Trump. Zelensky is always agreeing with Trump, and Putin is the one who's always delaying the negotiations.
Oh, it's an interesting world in which we live, Dr. Keith Suter.
Absolutely.
I will let you go. Thank you for making us all a little wiser today. Really appreciate it.
Good. Thanks very much indeed, Luke. Thank you.
Dr. Keith Suter. Coming up, something I want you to listen to very carefully. We're going to talk to Victor White, his daughter Julie, and then the Reverend Jim Reynolds on the 16-year-old kid who, we can now say it, murdered Vilene White. He has pleaded guilty, and we're going to get their reaction. That's coming up next. Well, I have personally been following this for a long time now, too long. And we're talking about the teenager that was charged with the stabbing death of a beautiful 70-year-old Ipswich woman, Vilene White. It happened during a carjacking. Can you believe it? Almost 18 months ago. Well, this bloke has now pleaded guilty to her murder. Okay, I'll say it again. He's pleaded guilty to murder. Just to give you some background for those who have just joined us, in February last year, Vilene White was fatally wounded in the chest at an underground car park at a Redbank Plains shopping centre near Brisbane. This bloke, who's now 17 years old, he was 16 at the time, he cannot be named under Queensland's youth justice laws. He appeared in the Supreme Court in Brisbane for arraignment. Now, in front of Vilene White's husband and other family members seated in the gallery, the teenager entered pleas of guilty to several charges, including murder and unlawful use of a motor vehicle in company. He also pleaded guilty to unrelated stealing offences. At the time of his arrest, it was alleged the then 16-year-old had stabbed Vilene White while trying to steal her car. The teenager, who's been on remand since his arrest, was returned to custody ahead of his sentencing. Vilene White's husband, Victor, is totally blind. And I've said this before, radio was his friend and his company, and I am so flattered to say he chose my company and my radio station and my program to listen to. And Victor and I have become good friends. We talk all the time, probably once a week, maybe twice or three times a week. And he's with me now. G'day, buddy.
Good morning, Luke. How are you going?
No, more importantly, how are you going?
Yes, I'm still dealing with the loss type of thing. Very receptive to my calls, which I appreciate very much. And you've become a close friend of the family in your own way.
And your daughter, Cindy, who we've spoken to on this podcast.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You said in court, outside court, that the worst part of sitting in there was listening to what this bloke had done. I don't want to put you through any more pain, and I'm glad that he's pleaded guilty because you won't have to go through a court case and bring your whole family through it. And especially you and Vilene's granddaughter, who was 6, who witnessed the whole thing.
That's the whole main issue in the end, Luke, that one there.
So your wife and your granddaughter were accosted at a shopping centre.
Yeah, no, he just walked up out of the blue, demanded the car keys, which he was giving willingly. Then he chose to execute her on the spot. There's no other ways of putting that subject.
After your wife gave him the car keys, said, okay, take it, take the car.
Yeah. She gave him the car keys. He stood there, sized her up, then he executed her because she was dead within a minute.
It just breaks my heart, and I've spoken to your daughter, Cindy, and I've spoken to you many, many times. I don't know how your granddaughter, who's now 7, is going to ever get over this. And that's the thing. I mean, she's got to suffer this for the rest of her life.
That's the unfortunate part about the whole subject.
Under previous laws, the maximum penalty the teenager faces is 10 years unless a judge determines his offending was particularly heinous. And then he could be handed up.
That's to be foreseen.
Yeah, and then he could be handed a sentence of up to and including life. Now, the legislative changes are going to help other families because the Anastasia Palaszczuk government was running Queensland at the time, but now there's been a change of government. David Crucifili introduced legislation where there's adult time for an adult crime. This bloke won't be sentenced under those laws because he did it before the change of government. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, well, not happy about that, but that's just how it was at the time, and I was warned about that from day one before he was Premier. My whole issue, the whole subject in the end, right, is one thing, is the bail laws with these weak magistrates. Bail laws are contributing to people being murdered. There's no other way of putting it. That's got to change. And it's the same in your state, right, and all around the bloody country. These bail laws got to change, and especially with juveniles, because if they're prevented from going further with their crimes, you're saving them from what this juvenile's got to be facing now for the rest of his life. And I blame the magistrates, and I blame Anastasia Palaszczuk when she was in power, and I've said it on TV before, she's the godmother of juvenile crime because she done nothing about it.
Your other daughter, Julie, has said that every aspect of the whole family and the whole family's lives has been changed. How's it changed everyone's life, Victor?
Well, with Julie, my daughter Denise, and Cindy, and myself in some shape or form, it's a mental trauma for the whole family.
Now, our conversation can't change the sentencing. It's up to a judge now.
It's up to the so-called judge, and I hope he has a bit more backbone, which is what's going to come up next when he reads the evidence put before him. Until he stands up and shows a bit of courage in doing the proper sentencing, nothing will change till, they're taken till they're made to retire.
Now that he's pleaded guilty and you don't have to be dragged through a trial, and your granddaughter doesn't have to be dragged through a trial and being told to repeat what she saw that dreadful, dreadful day, does that leave you and your family any compassion for this bloke? At all?
No. I have no compassion because I can't change what he done, and you can't bring it back. So, but why should I show him any compassion at all when he outright chose to murder the person in front of him without a second thought? He showed no compassion, so why should I?
Victor, if you could sit down in a room face to face with the offender, who cannot be named and we'll never know his name, if you could look him in the eye and talk to him, and I want you to imagine doing it now, what exactly would you say to him?
I cannot talk to an outright parasite, right? Simple as that. That's just how I am, and I can't change the way I think. To me, he's a parasite, and that's all there is to it. When a bloke is 6'5", and he stands over my granddaughter, and my wife is only 5'2", and without a second thought, she's on the floor slaughtered.
Victor, Nikki and I and Kelsey and our whole family are wrapping our arms around your family.
Yep.
And you know that.
Yep.
Sentencing is on the 12th of November. We'll have to wait and see, but we'll never know this bloke.
No. And I don't want to know him either in any shape or form.
Do you feel sorry for his family and his mum?
I don't know because, put it this way, this so-called juvenile, I think he's a career criminal from when he could bloody, I don't know what age he started stealing, but he was a career criminal because he's always been around stealing from all the shops and terrorising people. And I don't know what kind of discipline his so-called parents imposed on him, but obviously there was very little.
We'll have to wait until the 12th of November. Can you please give me and Kelsey and Nikki want to send our love to Cindy and Julie and you and your granddaughter. We won't name her. And the Reverend Jim Reynolds is there to help you. You know that. Let's wait and see. Victor, I'm so dreadfully sorry this happened to you, mate.
Before you do hang up on me, if you'd like to talk to Julie and my son-in-law Brody, I'll give you their number when you choose to do it, because that way you can get their inside story and how they feel and everything, and by protecting the granddaughter type of thing, because they're deeply affected by everything too.
Of course they are, but I don't want to. Look, you ask them if it's okay if they want to talk to me. I don't want to drag them through any bad memory.
No, I've already asked her. I said, if I talk to Luke, would you be interested in talking to him? She says, yes.
Well, me and Kelsey will organise that, Victor. Victor, you take care, brother.
Thank you very much.
Folks, let me tell you why I don't go into winter without power pollen. We all know how run down you can feel at this time of the year. Low energy, colds, and you just feel, Well, power pollen's been in my routine for over 20 years. And you want to know why? It works, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. But it works. It's not just bee pollen. Nature Bee has this special process that makes it absorbable. It's called potentiation. Look it up. It means your body gets all that good stuff fast. More energy, better immunity, and a real lift when your battery's running low. So if you're staring down another long, cold season, give your body the fuel it needs. Do what I do. Head to the link in the show notes and grab yours today. Money back guarantee. I've got on the line Julie White. She has been very vocal about all of this, and she's on the phone now. Hi, Julie.
Hello, Luke.
After talking to your dad and Cindy, I feel like I know you, and this is the first time you and I have actually spoken. Darling, I don't know what to say. No one knows what to say. and you got a 6-year-old girl that witnessed this. You were very vocal when this bloke, he can't be named because he was a minor at the time.
Yep, that's right.
6'5", asked for your mum's car keys and she gave them up. And then next thing you know, he viciously stabs her to death in front of a 6-year-old girl. I just want you to tell my listeners where you're at.
Oh, it's been catastrophic is an understatement. You know, from the minute everything happened, it's just like a bomb going off. That's exactly how it feels. Everything is just blown to heck. This little girl was best friends with mum. They did everything together. Going up to the shops wasn't uncommon. They did that all the time. You know, mum would spoil her rotten, as grandparents often do. You know, they go to the park, all these sorts of things. And many times over the past 18 months, she said, you know, I just wish I could have Nanny back for one day. That's a wound that I don't think will ever fully heal. And I don't think it's meant to. When you have a bond that strong with someone, that doesn't ever come to a close. That's the love, that's the burden that you carry for someone that you are close with. So it's just a matter of helping her navigate that and focus on the good things as opposed to the bad things. And, you know, she's got all the psychology help that she needs. Again, that only goes so far, you know, so it's just that love and support from the rest of the family that I think will help a lot. But it's not going to go away. It's not something, as many people said, you know, that's a life sentence, and it tends to be for everybody. Like, everybody's suffering. A lot of people in our family had medical issues prior that have now been escalated because, you know, stress and anxiety and depression and just grief in general takes such a massive toll. And I don't think it is talked about enough. It's a really weird situation where, our family's almost aggressive about the fact, and we are now able to talk about a lot of different things that most people can't. And it is important. I think it's important to talk about a lot of different issues, anything from government to holes in the mental health system, all of it. Like, it's just, and we are, unfortunately, we're experiencing just about all the holes in all the systems that there could be. And I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing, it's more of disbelief. But you can't even celebrate the fact that court's coming to a close. Like, you take solace in the chapter closing, but it's like you're not celebrating it, so to speak. It's just, thankfully, one thing is wrapping up, but then you've got all this other stuff still left to deal with. So
how does a 6-year-old girl cope with what she witnessed that day?
Yeah, well, she doesn't like talking about it at all. She's mentioned little things to Dad and a couple of other family members in the mix there because she doesn't want to upset anyone. And for a little girl to bear that burden, and this is why we had to be so, you know, let's get onto the psychologists immediately, because she needed someone to confide in, and getting that professional help. And they don't delve right into it at all. It's not like, oh, yep, step one, talk about everything. No, they've got to do a lot of building, a lot of light work beforehand, and eventually she might start to open up a bit more and explain how she feels. But you know, it does affect a lot of things. There's been things like schooling that's affected, trying to get back into that routine and rhythm and learning. And you try as much as you can as a family to do the support you can, but no one's written a book on this stuff. There's no 101 how to deal with this particular incident. So it's like every day, if I can give a quick shout out, one of the organisations that needs support, it needs funding, more government assistance, is the Queensland Homicide Victims Support Group. They do endless amounts of work, and I can safely say without their assistance, I don't know where we'd be today. They help from everything between setting up the counselling appointments, court-related things, victims assist. They've been a big support to the little one as well. So that's been a huge help. One thing I will say is the little one has mentioned a few times, you know, how she couldn't save Nanny that day.
She feels guilty?
Yeah. And she said a few times, you know, I wish I could have pulled triple zero, or, you know, all these types of things. And the fact of the matter is, you just have to reassure. You're like, this isn't your fault. You know, you're not the one to blame here. It's
the poor little thing. She feels guilty.
Yeah.
At 6.
Yeah. And it's just, how you meant to deal with that. It's just not something that she should be feeling at all, because she did try her best on that day. She thinks, that wasn't good enough, and a bit of that survivor's guilt. But we've reassured her, we're like, you found a doctor of all people on that day.
How did she do that?
So when everything first went down, she ran up to the escalators to go up to where Aldi actually is. Apparently she was screaming. Not many people were sort of understanding what was happening. I think just the initial, what is going on? Everyone's sort of in a panic. But one doctor, who's an African doctor, he happened to hear the crying and he heard that someone was bleeding. So he's just immediately like, oh, okay. But he didn't want to follow her down there. He's like, because one of two things, I didn't want to go down with a little girl by myself because I just didn't feel right about that. And I thought, well, how honourable are you? Yeah. And the second was he just wanted to make sure there was other help on hand if he did need assistance. So then another lady came, which actually we happen to know. She's been a long family friend for years. She had no idea what she was walking into. And so they both went down together. Lo and behold, the scene before them, no one would have been prepared for at all. So both the doctor and the little one have said, they've got that survivor's guilt of we couldn't save her. And I'm like, well, if a doctor couldn't and you wouldn't expect a little child to, but the fact that she found a doctor in the first place, you did literally all you could do. We as a family certainly don't place blame in their hands. You have to point it straight at the direct source, and that was a boy out on bail. And B, why was he out on bail? And that leads to government. Yeah, a lot of our anger as a family has been that we've been let down by a corporation or system that is there to serve and protect a community, and it just hasn't happened. So that's why both Cindy and Dad have just been on the forefront, hammering away, because a lot of us, as I said, it was like a bomb going off in the beginning, and I'm amazed that those two had the strength to really pull through and do what they did at the time, because it certainly wasn't easy in the beginning of all stages. So
she had the foresight to go ask for help. She found an African doctor. What did he do when he got there?
He did his best to perform CPR. He said it was difficult under the circumstances because he is a general GP who's used to, maybe spotting up a bleed that's minor. He's like, this particular incident, I didn't have anything on hand which would have aided me any more than, he's like, but unfortunately, I think the nature of the wound, there wasn't much to be done. Like, even if you had a whole entire operating theatre, so to speak, he's like, it would have been nearly impossible to pull a save off. So you think if it had been, a wound to the arm or a wound to the leg or something, it would have been survivable. But to that degree, absolutely not.
Julie, Jesus.
It's a lot. Yeah.
And this little girl, how did her school, I'm talking about the faculty, the teachers and the students, did you get support from that department?
So I spoke with the principal. I think it was either that night or a couple of days before. It's all blur now. But he said, look, whatever you guys need.
He wouldn't have been equipped for this.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't think anybody's been equipped for this. I just think, it's just so out of your mind, wild. Yeah, so her teacher and the students, I think when she come back, I don't think they so much informed the whole school of what happened. It was they're trying to keep it discreet and, trying to deal with it as a need-to-know basis type of thing, which I actually appreciated because at that point, the last thing you need when it's all over the news is every other person, coming at you, and it's very overwhelming. So the close friends and family are one thing, but then everyone else, it's like, oh God. With her learning, teachers have, just tried to go at her pace for now and just see, what she can handle. And it's been an interesting journey because on one hand, you do worry that, how much is she going to be affected? But at the same time, you sort of gain a different perspective of what actually matters. Is it the learning that matters or is it her well-being? And well-being trumps every single time.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we're all on the same page, which is nice. No one's sort of going, oh, well, she doesn't get a pass on this class. That's the end of it. No, it's more of a we're just going at her pace, and we're encouraging where we can and being a bit firm where we need to be, because, kids still need boundaries, and that's important. So, yeah, it's been a huge effort on all fronts, let me tell you.
Is she sleeping okay?
There's been a few restless nights and nightmares and things like that. The more therapy she gets, it seems to be a little bit better as time goes on, or if they do pop up, we just sort of chat about it and, discuss things and do as you need to do. But it was definitely rough. Probably the first 6 or so months, it was, she had a lot of fear, as you can imagine.
Tell me about the relationship your little girl had with Nanny.
They were like peas in a pod. They love spending time together. They'd go up to the park, even just in the backyard, if going out there, playing, kicking a ball around, things like that. They'd love watching, animal videos on YouTube. And Mum was a Christian, so they'd sit there and watch little Jesus clips and things like that. They love spending time together. And that's all you could want from a grandmother, I think, is just someone who wants to spend time with you. And I think they did baking and, you name it, they did it. And they had a really lovely relationship. And I think if there's anything that we can try and focus on, it is that, is what we did have when it was here, and not so much the loss, but that's just part of the grief, is you're always going to sort of come to terms with that. But
she shared a Christian relationship with your mum, so this is where faith is a good thing. Is she secure in the knowledge that she's in heaven?
Yes, very much so, yeah.
So faith has given her some strength?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Now, here's my next important question, Julie White. How are you sleeping?
It's taken a long time, and honestly, I'm on medication at the moment just to help. There's a long time where you just have those repeated thoughts, and they'd always seem to bombard you just before you go to sleep. I don't know what that's about, but apparently it's somewhat normal. I don't know if I've had proper sleep since, like when you have nice peaceful rest and then versus disturbed, or you just wake up feeling like a train's hit you. So who knows how long that's going to take to not be that way. But it's not been fantastic, if I'm honest.
So you're seeking help as well? Correct,
yeah.
You okay?
Oh, I know I'm doing a little bit better than last year. Last year was horrendous. It's just like thing after thing after thing that just steamrolls you. This year, I think it's not that you're so much doing better, but I'm coping better with it. Now that I've started the psychology and got the counselling on my side, it's a little bit easier to sort of think through things. It's not so, you don't try and do it in your own strength, which is incredibly hard to do. Certain things will pop up, like memories on your Facebook, as they do, and Mum sent you a message for your birthday and you're just like, oh, God. So God. I think that's part of the normal grief, if that makes sense, whereas last year was like a lot of the initial shock and trauma of it, which still takes time to heal through. But this year it seems to be more of the missing and the, realising Mum's actually gone, so.
Sentencing is on the 12th of November.
Yeah.
And he was 16. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Can I ask you this? And if it's a tough question, please say I don't want to answer. But if you could sit face to face with this kid, 6'5", what would you ask him? And what would you tell him?
I think I just want to know why. Because at this point, it doesn't make sense. If someone put up a fight, you might understand. But from what I've been told, there was no question about it. So why Mum? Why that day? Why that time? All the questions of just why. There's so many of that I don't think we're ever going to know. Wish he did anything different? Does he regret being where he is? How does he feel about how his family is, because they haven't shown up to anything? They are very distraught about the whole matter. I think they're also in fear of community backlash and all these things. So they've been affected a great amount. I want to know if that affects him, that they're affected. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's such a ripple effect. Everything, it's not just our family. His family suffered, not to the extent of ours, but they've been implicated nonetheless. So I just want to know what his opinions and thoughts and everything else is on it, because it's questions that, like I said, it doesn't make sense otherwise.
If his family, if his mother reached out to you, would you talk to her?
That's a hard one. In the future, maybe. Right now, I think it's all still just a bit raw and real. I'm all about genuine interactions. If someone was genuine with their interaction and they had a genuine want to have a chat, then I would be open. But when it's all for niceties, if you will, then you've lost me. So it really does depend on the intention behind it.
Yeah, of course.
That's how I'd feel about it.
Julie White, can I just say this? I've been on top of this since it started, and I've been friends with your dad, as you know. And I've got a very good friend called the Reverend Jim Reynolds, who's very good. If you want to reach out to him, he would love to just talk to you. That's what he does. But my audience and my family, I'm sorry, I'm getting upset. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
No, I am. And I'm thinking about this 6-year-old little girl. We are here for you and Cindy and your dad. And if ever you need to reach out, and Kelsey, if ever you need to reach out, please ring me. Your dad rings me at all hours, and I talk to him because I know he needs a friend. So please, we all are inviting you to do that too. Please, can we keep in touch? And if there's anything, the Bonafide family are here for you. Okay.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I really do.
Julie White, stay strong.
I'm doing my absolute best.
So after I finished speaking to Julie, both Julie, Cindy, and of course Victor, they feel as though they kind of know the Reverend Jim Reynolds, especially Victor, because he's a big consumer of radio. I said after the recording to Julie, would she like the Reverend Jim to get in touch? And she said, yes, please. And of course he has. He answered the call and he has spoken to her. I mean, God, how do you deal with this? And the Reverend Jim Reynolds is with us. G'day, Rev.
G'day, mate. How's it going?
I'm okay. Obviously, during my podcast and my chat with Julie, I got quite emotional because I just kept imagining Nikki's mum, Lynn, and one of her grandchildren being involved in all of this, and it just really upset me. This teenager who's been charged is going to face a magistrate. Well, it's not going to court. He's pleaded guilty. 16, 6'5". As we all now know, he wanted her car. She handed the keys over happily, but he still stabbed her to death. The conversation you had with Julie is strictly confidential. But Reverend Jim, what do you make of all of this, and how do you cope with this?
Do you know, I wish I knew the answer. It's a very, very hard question that you asked me. Every person is individual, and people deal with it in their own way. We've got a family who's been torn apart by a totally senseless crime, and trying to come to terms with that as well as the loss, it's very, very hard. You have some people who decide that they want to try and change the community that they're living in. You'll have other people who go into a shell for many, many years, not wanting to deal with anyone. It's very hard. And you've just got to be there for those individual people and help them as they need. And that's the trick, is just being there, listening to them and being there for what they need so you can help them.
How does a 6-year-old, now 7-year-old, deal with what she saw?
It's the hard questions you're asking me at the moment, Luke. I don't know. All I can tell you is that kids that I've worked with can be very resilient. They can learn some valuable life lessons. In a way, they come to a crossroads in some respects. Some kids will develop a passion to help the community, Be it become police officers, the next generation, or the next generation of doctors, nurses, paramedics, with a drive to help people that you don't often see. Others can crash and burn and end up on the other side of the perspex glass in a jail cell. You just don't know until that child starts growing. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't give you any medical facts or anything like that. It's just from what I've seen over the years. But this little girl is at a crossroads now, and we just have to be there and listen when she needs to let things out and try and guide her the best way possible and encourage her to still have faith in humanity, and that this is a very rare occurrence. I know we hear about it a lot on the news, and that, but in reality, in Australia, it is still quite a rare thing.
I just keep thinking back to when I was 6, and I can't imagine what that 6-year-old little girl saw. And as you know, she ran to get help. She saw her grandmum lying on the floor bleeding. Not only the age of 6, but at the age of 66. I don't know how you cope with that.
When you put it in those words, it sends a shiver right down my spine, just to be seeing that and to see, especially when you're 6, your grandmother, your grandfather, they're the fun adults and stuff like that. And to see it happen, and again, I'm just getting shivers and goosebumps even trying to contemplate that whole thing. It's one of those questions that I don't think anyone has an answer to. We empathise, we sympathise, we will do everything we can to help. But to even imagine what was going through her mind, it's such a hard question.
It'll take a team of great psychologists to try and help this little girl, let alone you've spoken to Julie.
Yes.
And I know that you'd be happy to talk to Victor, who feels he knows you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you counsel someone through this, Reverend Jim Reynolds?
It's simple silence. That's always been the thing that I do, is I will listen and let people talk it out as much as possible. Sometimes that's what people need, is just to know that there's an ear on the other end of the phone or on the other side of a table with a cup of coffee, and just listen and let people get it all out, because when you bottle it up, that's when you have a lot more problems. And I just provide a safe space for people to let it out, and we go from there.
As I said at the beginning, the conversation you have had with Julie White is strictly confidential, but are you going to stay in touch if she needs you?
Oh, absolutely. We've got a few plans in place and that kind of thing for a daughter. She's got my number now, and she'll send me texts and keep me updated with what's happening.
I love you so much, Reverend Jim Reynolds. Thank you so much.
Not a problem at all, mate. You take care.
Coming up next, Andrew Fennell, new sponsor here on Bonafide. I've known him for 20 years, and we're going to answer some of your pest problems. I tell my listeners so often, but I'll say it again, I only endorse products I believe in. I only endorse products that work and products that offer a money-back guarantee. Now, I've known you 21 years this year. It's ridiculous.
Mate, it's a long time. I think we often discuss the time when you used to come down and see me in Double Bay in Alexandria, and I'd try to make you a coffee, and it was always terrible, but you always
It was the worst coffee. It was the worst coffee. Alexandria is where I went, and we sat on milk crates and had a chat. Andrew is the boss of Pest, and people don't usually wake up one day and think, I'm going to get into pest control, but did you have a really bad experience with rats once, or what got you into this? Go into the background of Pestrol and how it all started.
My father was in insurance. He was at AMP for a long time, so he was a gifted salesperson. So I guess that got me into sales. However, that also made me cringe about sales, Luke, because he was always selling, always closing. Whereas, I kind of thought I'd try something else. I actually tried to do some day trading in America first, but that resulted in fairly poor performance. And then I kind of reverted back to thinking, okay, here I am in Australia, insects, problem. Can I do a product that needs to have refills that can be maybe sold on radio? And I had no experience on radio, and I actually found a product And I was surfing in Bondi at the time and not really getting ahead. And I thought, okay, look, this could work. I need to be able to get through to the masses. And as you know, mate, I went onto radio right off the cusp on some of the talkback stations. And it kind of just started from there. And out of just working from home, it kind of turned into a shed. Then it turned into a building, and then it turned into bad coffee, and then it turned into meeting incredible people like you along the way. And it's just continued to grow. So mate, I feel very thankful that I've been in that position. It's been great.
Well, it's been great. It's great that you and I have been friends for such a long time, and I really do believe in Pestrol. We've used so many of your products. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and they work. And the thing I love about it, one is that warranty and the money-back guarantee, but two, it bloody works. And just saying rats and mice, that's only the tip of this amazing iceberg. But look, before you were a sponsor of the podcast, and thank you so much for being on board the Bonafide experiment.
My pleasure.
We were still getting messages from people who listened to the night shift on Triple M about their pest problems, thinking I was still one of your advertisers. So I just thought we'd play a little bit of Q&A here on Bonafide. So Andrew Fennell, we also asked on our Facebook page for people to submit questions. Are you ready to go?
Mate, shoot from the hip and I'll give you my best response. And if I can't, I'll come back to you on it.
This is question number one. This is from Casey. We have a constant mosquito issue in our apartment that gets worse in summer. We live in the city, so I'm perplexed. I have to wear repellent to bed. We've tried all the, in brackets, natural and some not so natural remedies, but absolutely no luck. We can't go on living like this. We get mozzies. If you've got stagnant water anywhere, you're going to have mosquitoes. And God, they bite, but they also it keeps you awake at night. But mosquitoes spread disease.
They do. And I guess you're going to say, what do I personally use? I mean, you know that we've got over 5,000 SKUs now. That's not all pest control, as you know, Luke. But when it comes to mosquitoes, that's the one thing that drives me insane. In the middle of summer, I'm hearing that there's some mosquitoes around my head and they're having a party. You turn on the light, they disappear. You turn the light back off, they come back and get you. It's a real nightmare. Now, I know from what you're saying, you said she's tried all sorts of things. Mosquitoes are one of those things that you pest controllers can do a pretty good job. We have a lot of great products that do a good job, but there's nothing out there that's 100%. I'll tell you what I do in summer, Luke, and I think I've told you before. I obviously use that natural pyrethrum spray that you and I have talked about for years. I think that's just a really great way of creating that barrier that mosquitoes don't like. However, before I go to bed, I've got one of those tennis rackets, and I almost go around and do a sweep of our bedroom before I go to bed. I'm hitting the curtains. I'm just tapping the bed. I'm just making sure nothing's going on. And if I see anything moving, be rest assured, Luke Skywalker comes out with a tennis racket. And I am just annihilating the mosquitoes. But other than that, look, we've got natural mosquito repellent that I take away with me whenever I go overseas that I really think's special. But, mate, there's so many different products on our website, and I feel for her. But, there's things she can do.
This electric tennis racket, it's more like a badminton racket.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And it's electrified, and you beep, 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 beep. But the pyrethrum spray, the Pestrol pyrethrum spray is fantastic. We've got one in our entertaining area because it spreads it goes a long way. We've got one in the kitchen that goes,
yes.
But can I just tell you this? It gets rid of cockroaches as well. It's just fantastic. Pestrol.com.au, money back guarantee. Now, got a question for you from Brandon.
Okay.
Is it true that a glass of apple cider vinegar will get rid of fruit flies? Personally, I think it's BS. It never works for me. It's from Brandon.
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask me a health question about apple cider vinegar there. Okay, look, one of our products that we have for trapping fruit flies, the ingredient, we get it in from the States, funny enough, and it is actually apple cider vinegar, but it does come inside a trap. So if you do just leave apple cider in a saucer or something like that, it will attract the fruit flies. They will get stuck in there and they will die. The next level we've done, Luke, in our product is it's a trap. So they've got to get into a one-way trap system where they can smell the apple cider vinegar, and if they don't die inside the apple cider vinegar, well, they can't escape anyway. So it just takes the next level up. However, the apple cider vinegar, no problem at all. I think it works quite well. And also for those wine flies, the ones when you open up a bottle of wine and all of a sudden just mysteriously they appear.
This is from Kim. I don't understand how the sonic waves or whatever you guys use can get rid of rodents when the chemical traps we are using are doing absolutely nothing. Explain.
Yeah, so that's a good one. I mean, look, chemical traps, as you know, when I first started the business, it was just all chemical free. As time's passed on, we deal with so many hundreds of pest controllers around the country. But when it comes to the ultrasonic sounds. You've got to understand that rodents have a different hearing capacity than we do. I think you and I have laughed about it before. It's like having AC/DC blasted at you in the middle of the night.
No, Billy Ray Cyrus.
Yeah, true.
AC/DC would attract people.
But it's about sounds that the rodents can hear that we can't. They see it as a hostile environment. Of course, if they're super hungry or if they need a place to stay, maybe it might take a little bit more time to get rid of them. But these sounds are sounds that they literally just see as a combat area. They don't want to be there. And as a result, they move off from that location. It's as simple as that, Luke, for the ultrasonic stuff.
And so many people have gotten back to me saying, ever since I got Andrew's Pestrol rat and mouse deterrent, you plug it into the wall, you forget about it, and they go. It's amazing. We got 3. We got one upstairs, one under the stairs, and one in the downstairs entertaining area. Haven't had a problem.
Luke, you and I have often said that provide 100-day money back with this one, because there are times where I can't go to everyone's home and check out their wiring and see how the circuits are set up in their home. That 100-day money-back guarantee, it gives people enough time to work out that if it's going to work for them. Sometimes they might have to chat to us. We might have to provide another unit. We might need to relocate the unit. But, yeah, it's been a tremendous success. You know, we do now sell chemicals as well. I personally prefer not to use chemicals. So you come to my home, you see me using chemical-free products wherever I possibly can, and we've sold so many of them, as you know.
Timothy is asking you this. I keep my house clean and tidy. We've checked for holes, sealed any gaps, and we still get rodents. I'm at my wit's end. We live in a suburban area and don't have garbage piled up. So why the hell do they keep coming? My neighbours don't have the problem.
Yeah, and that's we hear that quite a lot. So you can really seal up all the gaps, whether you use steel wool, whether or not you get a builder in to take care of them. Even having the door open, sometimes a rodent can come inside. And even if you got, say, one of our plug-in units or even using traps or whatever the case may be, once they come inside and then you have got it almost rodent protected, so they can't come in. But if they've come in through a ranch slot or something, for example, well, then they might not be able to leave. So that's also another problem. Yeah. And I have no doubt, I think you're saying, Timothy, he's probably got a very spotless home. But what's his wall cavities like? What's the ceiling space like? What's the nesting area there? I've heard of rodents where, again, they can't get out, so they'll just make a nest in places where you don't even think they would make them, whether it's in a couch or whether it's behind a dishwasher. I think you had issues with that.
They ate through one of the hoses.
Yeah.
And we had water pouring out. Oh, no, we had to go up the front and turn it off.
Yes.
And get a plumber in, and he said it's rats. Look at this.
Yeah.
But we haven't had a problem since Pestrol. I promise you, hand on my heart.
No, that's good. So I look for Timothy. I'd say, he's done everything right to stop them from coming in. But if he's got them inside, he might just need to use some traps to get them, and then just relocate them outside or send them off to his neighbours. But yeah, unfortunately, that we do hear that often.
And they used to chew through my speaker wire.
Just as long as I don't get close to your car and create, mate, the stories we hear of leather and people's beautiful antique cars, or they get into the engine bay and they just make a mess. And we've heard it all. We've heard old ladies being in the bath and having a rat fall from the ceiling, and it's the horror stuff. I mean, it's there. We want them out, and we want them to stay out, of course.
Now, the other thing is you have a cordless one, a battery one, which you can put in the garage, you can put it in your shed, you can put it under the bonnet of your car or put it in your car, and it's a battery-operated one, and it works just as well. I've told you this story, but let me tell my new listeners this.
Yeah.
We had, years ago, our car serviced, and we went down to pick it up. Mal, the mechanic, it's always good to have a mechanic called Mal.
Of course it is.
But anyway, he said, I wanted to keep me this, and he replaced the air filter, and it was a nest. He said, that's rats and mice. Look at this. I could not believe it under the bonnet because the car's warm for a while after. Anyway, unbelievable, folks. Pestrol. We've got Greg here. My mother and I are going through what feels like the fight of my life right now. We're going through an infestation of bird mites. Bird mites. I became contaminated just through a cardboard box in my car with 2 pictures in it, and it's taken over our lives. Andrew, please give us some advice. We're struggling mentally and financially. Serious.
Yeah, and that's the issue, isn't it? I mean, the smallest of little insects can create such a problem inside your home. I mean, it's the same thing happens with, we hear people with the bed bug issues. you just think that's something pretty straightforward, but if you can't get rid of them, it's a real problem. Same with bird mites. Regrettably, I probably have to chat to some of my pest control mates to get the real answer on this one, Luke, but I do know from a chemical perspective, sometimes you do need to use some of those residual sprays. If you've got a real problem and you need to take care of it, if it's starting to cost you time financially and just mentally it's starting to wear you out, sometimes you might need to look at some of the residual spray. We sell something called Force on our website. You just mix it up with some water. You just put it into crevices, cracks on any of the areas, and that residual will just take care of it. It's kind of what the pest controllers would use, but if you want to do it yourself, you certainly have that opportunity as part of our DIY selection.
I just think before you spend the thousands, try a Pestrol product. Money back guarantee, a warranty. There are so many other products, folks.
I remember the first time you came down and saw me, Luke, I think I had about 5 SKUs in my range?
I know.
Pretty easy. It's a lot easier to do stock take, I got to tell you. But now that you get up to 5,000, and by the way, the brands for some of the pest control stuff are the brands that the pest control guys use. So they're not all my products. So the Pestrol branded products are the products that I've developed over time and constantly improved. But when it comes to just everyday good Australian branded products, we're throwing those into our site. We've got great relationships with other Australian companies to make sure that when people do come, like the last question you provided, I don't think I could do anything naturally in that space. But as a result, we've got all the top brand that all the pest controllers use. We're talking to them all day long. If someone comes with a problem, we'll have a solution for them.
Now, I want you to remind me about the rodent-free Max, RFM. Tell the folks about the rodent-free Max.
Yeah, well, look, initially when I started the business, it was about, I did that automated pyrethrin spray and it was great. So that kept me busy from about October through till about March. And then I had a business that did nothing for quite a period of time, as you can imagine. And we decided, and we did a bit of research, and I was looking around the world. I was going to a lot of different trade shows. And then we thought, we'd seen some technology. So we created our own one. And that was the rodent-free. And that one's been around now with us for about 15 years, or 10 to 15 years. I think the one that we've been selling with you up until last year. We've been working on a new one for the last 2 or 3 years and just making sure it's gone through all the electrical testing phases and so forth. And we've just released that earlier in the year. It is called the Pestrol Rodent-Free Max. It's just a sleeker design. It's more powerful. And just like anything, you learn from ways to improve your product over time. We talked about the ultrasonic sounds coming from the speaker itself before when you had a question from another lady, but Pestrol Rodent-Free Max also uses that electromagnetic technology. And we all have that in our home. It's part of our wiring. And all our unit does is it just oscillates or turns that vibration on and off. So it's not adding anything to your wiring. It's just using what's already there, but modulating it in a way where it creates a sound, a high-pitched sound, again, that we can't hear. But, of course, our little furry friends can hear. And they don't like it, and as a result, they move on.
I have known this man for 21 years.
Mate, a long time.
It's a long time. I love you, mate, and you are a mate. You're more of a friend than a client. But I want to thank you so much for trusting Bonafide. I hope that we can do more together. And it's just so good to hear your voice and using this magic technology. It's good for me to be able to see your face.
Mate, it is magic technology. It's funny how you're asking me Q&A. I could almost be giving you Q&A because the amount of times people ring up Pestrol and go, I want to chat to Andrew. I've got to ask a few questions about Luke. What's he really like?
Tell him the truth.
Well, that's the problem. You tell the truth all the time. I can't really do anything behind your back just for a laugh. So, but no, mate, the people that follow you, a special kind of crew, and mate, they're down to earth, pretty easy to chat to, and mate, it's still nice we can chat to you, and I hope your success continues, mate.
Look, there's an old saying: if you are constantly lying, you've got to have a very good memory. So I just tell the truth. I wear my heart on my sleeve. If I offend people, I don't give a rat's. I tell people what's on my mind, but I don't tell people what to think. I give them something to think about.
Well said, mate. I like it.
Welcome aboard the good ship Bonafide.
Mate, it has left the dock and it's on its way.
Coming up, the leader of the National Party, David Littleproud. Is his job under threat? That's next. Once again, due to popular demand, the leader of the Nationals, David Littleproud, joins us here on Bonafide with me, Luke Boner. David, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I didn't scare you off.
Not yet, mate. Occupational hazard. You got to do these things.
I've got to tell you, this is not a word of a lie. In the lead up to the, not last federal election, the one before, the Prime Minister, he's now the Prime Minister, when he was leader of the opposition, Anthony Albanese's media people were all over me like calamine lotion. And I think we recorded a couple of chats. Ever since Prime Minister, not an email, not a phone call returned. Funny, isn't it?
Yeah, how the mighty treat the meek. But anyway, mate, happy to talk to anybody.
I know, but I'm just trying to keep some balance. Anyway, so it's not as if he hasn't been invited. David, first things first, I saw on Sky News the other day that you've dismissed claims that your leadership's under threat. Last time you and I spoke, I asked you how you got on with Michael McCormack and Barnaby Joyce. And you said you and Barnaby are good friends. You don't go to each other's houses for barbecues or have a beer every day, but you got on well. Is that still the case?
I mean, this is a sport. We come into our party room, walk through our issues. Thursdays I put on a lunch. We're in town. Most people will go to the pub. It's not hatred. We go to work, not necessarily best of friends, but we're always have a laugh and a beer. We don't have any malice. There's no malice in this game.
I noticed that most politicians get old very quickly. Look at Barack Obama.
Where's this lady, mate?
No, I'm just saying it's a really, really tough job, and you're looking at people from the other side of the house. It must be very frustrating when you're looking at your own side as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're disappointed. You're here to be sitting on that other side, to make a difference, to leave a legacy. But you can do one or two things. You can get in the corner and fetal position and give up, or you can come out swinging, and that's what we've got to do.
Is it a policy issue on net zero? Barnaby Joyce said on Sky, he revealed, according to Sky News, that his relationship with you has broken down, and he admitted that he had been vying for Michael McCormack to take up apply for the position of leader of the Nationals again. He said his relationship with you was broken down.
Well, I've never had an argument with Barnaby. I don't have any malice. He's got issues that he wants to push. Our party room, they're the ones that made a determination they wanted to get information on net zero, some economic modelling and some understanding of what it would look like if we continue down this madness of an all renewables path. They wanted to do that calmly, methodically. Barnaby and Michael want to go a different path to what the majority of the party room wants to do. That's their right as backbenchers. They can do that. That's the beauty of our democracy. I don't have an issue with that. So what we'll do is work through it, and then we'll get to a position. And our position in the next couple of months, I don't want this to be lingering. I think that the economic data that Matt Canavan and Ross Cadell are working on, we'll have very soon, and hopefully get to a unanimous position. Barnaby and Michael wanted to go their own way. I don't have the luxury of just looking after individual whims. I've got to actually do it for the majority, and the majority want to go through the process before we finalise our position in terms of reviewing net zero.
Yeah, but a happy marriage is a marriage where both partners see eye to eye on most things, and so you have a juggling act because you're in a coalition. So the Nationals need to be in sync with the Libs to come forth as a united front with a policy everyone agrees on, correct?
To a degree. In fact, The Voice was a perfect example. We got the position of opposing The Voice before any other political party. We came out and we set the pathway. Obviously, the Liberals were able to get there. I didn't think they would. I thought that at best they'd probably get a conscience vote. So what we'll do is we'll get to our position. The Liberals are looking at their position as well. There's a process that's been created so that our position, the data that we're utilising is shared, and then they'll get to a position. If it's not the same, the joint party room will determine that. And so that's the process that we work through. But you shouldn't be afraid of those conversations, and that's what we're prepared to have as Nats. This is about just simply what the country could and should be doing, what the rest of the world is doing. Because if you look around the rest of the world, much of the rest of the world is starting to move away. If you look at Europe themselves are looking to exempt their heavy industries like cement and aluminium and steel from emissions reductions because the BRIC countries are still using fossil fuels. And so this is where we've just got to have an honest conversation and take away the hysteria. And that's why our party room, the Nationals party room, wants to go through this process.
All right, let's move on because I've got a lot to talk to you about. Donald Trump last week claimed victory over Australia's decision to lift restrictions on the import of US beef. I don't know how soon we'll see US product on our supermarket shelves. I was interested to see that Dr. Kate Severt at the Deakin University said US beef can't compete with the strong domestic cattle industry. I found out that more than 99% of beef available in Australian pubs and supermarkets and restaurants is Australian beef. What do you make of this decision?
Well, so a couple of things. US beef can come to Australia at the moment. It can only be, but if the beast was born and bred in the United States,
right?
It can't, and so what this decision is about allowing cattle that originated from South America, like Mexico, and Canada, where there are things like tuberculosis and mad cow disease that are still prevalent, and we needed to have traceability. So some of those cattle find themselves in the US supply chain, and what we've said is those cattle aren't allowed. What this decision is now saying, yes, they can. What we're very concerned about on this has been a process the US has asked us to look at. We've done risk assessments for the last 10 years. But the fact is that we've been doing it so long, yet when we make the announcement, the government does not announce the protocols, which is the legal binding way in which an importer could bring US beef that originate from Mexico, did not release those with the decision, which says to us is this was a decision made in Washington, made here to appease Trump, and the department's been told to catch up because they can't tell us what the traceability is in Australia. Every beast has an ear tag. You know where it is effectively from the time you mark it all the way through to slaughter where that beast has been, so you can trace it. We don't have those systems in the United States or in Mexico. We don't know any of those details. And so this just looks as though we've traded away our biosecurity. And then we're not talking big quantities of beef that will come into this country, but it doesn't matter. Well, you're talking not just about the national herd. You're talking about your health. We've never had mad cow disease here. We haven't had tuberculosis for decades. You only need a piece of meat with that in to get into our supply chains here, and we've got a problem.
Yep.
So I think what we need to do is independently verify the department's decision to make sure that the science is robust. In fact, we did this with prawns. I did it when I was agriculture minister. If you remember, there was a white spot outbreak.
Yes.
And then about 4 years later, someone wanted to import prawns in. The department did a risk assessment. They said, look, it's safe now. Industry didn't believe them. I didn't either. And so I put together an independent panel of scientists handpicked by the prawn industry to scientifically review that decision of the department to allow prawns in. They got to a consensus position. That's what we should do for this, because this is about human health, not just about our national herd. And I think Donald Trump's just walked all over Anthony Albanese because you've got Kevin Rudd running over there, running around trying to get him a meeting, and he'll sell whatever he can to give him that, to get Albanese a meeting. So we just got to be careful with this. It worries me. Hopefully we'll see the protocols sometime this week, but they should have been out with a decision if they were serious and they were believing in this process. But unfortunately, they've left a lot of unanswered questions.
David, do you think that if this goes ahead, it'll smooth the tariff tensions that we have with the US?
I think that's what this is all about. I don't think it's about anything else rather than just giving President Trump what he wants, to giving him a win. He's a guy that just trades and deals, does deals. So I think that's what this is all about. And so what you're going to do is, if you're going to do this, and I don't think we should fear US beef competing with Australian beef. We've got a superior product. At the moment, I think it peaks out at 200 plus tonnes. So it goes basically to the embassy here in Canberra or to a couple of US steakhouses. That's about the extent of what they've got. I still think Australian beef will outcompete US beef every day of the week. But this is about making sure we get the protocols right. Because once you get yourself into a position of trading away the science, you're putting Australians' lives and well-being at risk.
So, yeah, I think our ban goes back as far as 2003 for all the reasons you just said.
Yeah, that's right. And then so the US could prove that they had a supply chain that we could get confidence in over BSE and tuberculosis. But because their supply chain included cattle that came from South America, Mexico in particular, through Mexico, and Canada that didn't give us that certainty, that's why it was banned. So they have every right to, under the free trade agreements, to make application to try and get that meat back in here. But we do risk assessments to make sure that we have confidence in the science and the processes to be able to identify anything that might be adverse for Australia.
David Littleproud, I've got to talk to you about what went on in the Senate last week concerning Welcome to Country. Now, just let me say from the onset, I'm not a fan of it. I don't need to be welcomed to my own country. Neither do you, neither does Kelsey, neither does any other Australian. I don't believe it is a symbol of an ancient ritual that went on, and I can go into that a little bit later on. However, I am dead set against what Pauline Hanson did, standing up and showing her back. I think that does show respect to the chamber. For example, I may not believe in the Lord's Prayer, but if I'm in someone's church and they do the Lord's Prayer, I may not go along with the words, but I certainly won't turn my back on it. However, there was an enormous spray. I've never seen anything like it. Penny Wong copped it, dismissing Senator Jacinta Napajimba Price's opposition to the Welcome to Country ceremonies. Let's just have a quick listen to what Senator Price had to say.
I am absolutely done with the virtue signalling that takes place.
And so then Penny Wong decided she was going to have a say, and she said this.
You do not have to agree with the tradition of acknowledging country, but it is part of the rituals and traditions of this chamber.
Well, then Michaela Cash decided that she was going to have her say, and she reminded Parliament that Jacinta Price had every right to her opinion, and she doesn't need a condescending lecture from Penny Wong or anyone else just for expressing it. As sprays go, it was unbelievable. Let's have a listen to Michaela Cash in the Senate.
I suggest you read the story of Best Price before you ever come in here and cast aspersions or tell us, Senator Wong, to respect other words.
Wow. David Littleproud, what did you make of all that?
Well, I think it goes back to this whole point that you made to start with. We come to this place, we've got every right to put our point of view. You should do it, but in a respectful way. What Pauline Hanson, I agree with you, and in that I think the Welcome to Country has just become some empty symbolism
and a money earner for some land. I'll say it. And a money earner for some Aboriginal land councils who aren't transparent.
It doesn't fit, and it doesn't fix anyone's problems.
Jacinta Price said not one Indigenous person that's doing it tough in a remote part of Australia has benefited from this, and I don't believe in it. I don't need to be welcomed to my own country. However, I asked you the question. I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, this is our country, and we've done it together. We've made some mistakes in the past, but you know what? We're a country mature enough that we've owned up to the mistakes of our history without having to be told. That says a lot about the country that we are and how we got here. And there is no Australian that is intentionally left behind. And these ceremonies of Welcome to Country have no real meaning anymore. They're over the top. And I think what most people in Central Australia, where there is disadvantage, want is they just want governments to get on with the job, not of symbolism, but of actual delivery. I mean, there's over $4 billion alone just gone to in direct cash to the Department of Aboriginal and Islander Affairs. We know to the postcode where there's disadvantage, yet we still can't roll out a proper program to help those people get out of the demise they're in. So, you know, this is where our problem with the voice, we'll create another bureaucracy. We just need a better bureaucracy. We need support from Australian government to be predicated on need, not on race. That is what our country has been founded on, and we should be proud of that, of all that we've achieved. And that's the country we've got. We don't need to recreate the wheel and do anything other than having that. And where there is need, whether you're black, white, or brindle, you've got a safety net in this country. There's a responsibility, a mutual responsibility of you to try and get yourself out of your predicament you're in, to get that support for a period of time. But this is nonsense. And, you know, I think Michaela and Jacinta are saying exactly what most Australians feel. And, you know, this nonsense, I think it's all a cover to have this fight by Penny Wong. It's all on symbolism. It's about their failure. Because you know what? They were so keen to have the voice. They were so keen to fix the problems of Indigenous Australians. Yet, you know what? They have not done a thing since the voice. The first thing Peter Dutton and I did was walk in the very next week after The Voice into Parliament, and we actually said, we moved legislation for a Royal Commission into Child Sexual Abuse in Central Australia, and we moved for a forensic audit of all the spending in the Indigenous department so that we could see where we were getting outcomes. We did more in the first 2 weeks after The Voice than what the government did since. And we also believe, one of the policies I'm very proud of Jacinta and I worked on was local land councils, giving local Indigenous tribes more power in terms of determination rather than big land councils in Central Australia that don't listen to the opportunities of the local people in Alice Springs. They're being determined by someone out of Darwin. So, we've put practical measures, and that's what people want. That's what Indigenous Australians want. We've got a great country, and we don't need to keep belting ourselves up. We should have our chin up and our chest out. We've done a lot as a country. We've made a few mistakes. No one's saying we didn't, but we've been big enough to own up to them and get on with the job. And we've created a great country. No one should be telling us otherwise.
Do you know the thing that Jacinta said, and I totally feel where she's coming from because she's passionate. Remember, born and bred Alice Springs, and she has seen this at the coalface. She has been at the grassroots of where money should be spent, and she's seen it misspent everywhere for a long, long time. And so have you, and so have I. Yeah. But one thing that she said is because if you speak your mind, you white fella, you're called racist. Me, as a proud Indigenous Australian, I'm called a coconut if I don't go along with the narrative that some people think we should go down. And if we speak it's purely our opinion, and as Australians we're allowed to have it, we're called racist or I'm called a coconut.
Yeah. And this is what we're going to stop. We're better than that. We are better than that. And this is where Jacinta does have that lived experience. That's what we backed. And you know what? My Indigenous communities, they don't want special treatment. They just want to make sure that they've got the same opportunities we do. And they're the same as you and I. They're out there having a red hot crack. There's some parts where in Central Australia in particular, in North Queensland, where it's a bit harder because it's a lot more isolated, where they do need a bit extra help. But we should know that, and we should design that locally, not sit here and think that we have to recreate the wheel for Sydney the same way as we do for Alice Springs. And it should be on need, whether you're black, white or brindle. In this country, it's what made us so great, is that we should be blind to this stuff, and we should just help whoever needs it. You get a helping hand. There's always a backstop. That's the country we've created. That's what we should be proud of. But instead, we got all these activists and Wong telling us how bad we are as human beings, that we've created this bad country. We haven't. We've done a bloody good job, and we should be damn proud of it.
We should indeed. This part of Michaela Cash's spray.
I suggest you read the story of Best Price before you ever come in here.
And Best Price, I mean, she's one of the most beautiful women you'd ever meet in your life. And,
isn't she?
Jacinta's father is just a great human being. And you know, that is the success story that we should be talking about.
Correct.
Where we've come as a country, the people that have been given an opportunity who will grab it and show that they can lead the country, lead their territory. That's the story of Australia right there. That's the success story that Penny Wong and everyone needs to just stop, look at and say, that's what we're trying to achieve. That's what people in Indigenous communities want, the opportunity, but the knowing of having to have that will and the hard work to take that opportunity that's given to them by their country, grab it and make something of it. That's the story that we should be telling and getting Indigenous Australians, to every Australian, to aspire to.
Yeah. I want to move on, but I just think we've got to move forward. My folks have got to take the chip off the shoulder and put the pride back in the heart. We need to move forward. We are all Australians, and the money that's needed needs to go to the people that really need it. And this guilt trip that Penny Wong and Linda Burney would have us on is, how do I put it? It's like asking a bloke to pay child support for a child that's not his, born to a woman he's never met. It's
yeah. Look,
do you know what I'm saying? I mean,
it's condescending.
It's condescending.
We've all got an equal opportunity, a fair go in this country. You just got to grab it.
David Littleproud, former Minister for Agriculture, leader of the Nationals. Where are we at with these fire ants?
Look, it's frightening, and I think and I fear that we've got the white flag being flown by the federal government. The former Queensland government just made a mess of this. We had it contained to a really tight geographical area, and then they just got sloppy, and it's exploded. I fear that unless there's increased funding quickly, probably $200 million a year for the next 4 years, we unfortunately could see this right across the country. And what I'm really worried about is once that's in there, they're going to go to a management phase. It means we just got to live with these things. And that is frightening. These things can kill people. And the government hasn't been energetic about this. They've got a report they're sitting on they won't release publicly. I don't know why, because that'll tell us how much we do need to be able to eradicate these things. So we just need some transparency and honesty from this government. We haven't got it, but we need it really quickly, because if we let this thing get away, we're in real trouble.
These things can kill you. I mean, if you've got a mob of sheep or a herd of cattle in a paddock that's infested with fire ants, what happens then?
Well, you don't put them in there until you've eradicated. You can't use your backyard until it's eradicated. And this is the problem, what we don't understand is your amenity to even live in your backyard will be lost. These things are that invasive, and they can kill, and you won't be having livestock. There'll be about $2 billion wiped off Australian agriculture, but there'll be about 140,000 extra presentations to hospitals and doctors from these things attacking people. That's what the last study showed. So if we let this get away, that's the sort of Australia that we're going to have. But there just doesn't seem to be the urgency by this government to get on with the job of doing something about it.
David Littleproud, I know you're out of time. Thank you so much, and thank you, people, for organising this. Please, if you've got an email, a question for David Littleproud, Luke Boner, radioguy@gmail.com, go onto our Facebook, leave a voice message, and David, hopefully we'll talk again in a couple of weeks. How's that sound?
Sounds great. David
Littleproud. Coming up, Rocket, Rod, Hannafy, and Truckee Tuesday.
Got your diesel running, head out on the highway, missing all the roadkill. Another Truckee Tuesday. In the gate when you're changing from lanes, do not brake check me in my prime. Australia moves and it's thanks to you guys. Trucks to get there on time. Listen to the air horns. Dip your lights from high beam.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Truckee Tuesday. Rocket Rod Hannafy is with us again, and we've got a couple of very interesting people to talk to. Rod Hannafy, first of all, welcome back to Bonafide.
Good morning.
Now, a little bit later, we're going to get the answer to your quiz question.
Good.
In fact, I've decided because there's nothing like a bit of alliteration when it comes to these things, so I'm going to call it Rocket Rod's Road Riddle.
Oh, yeah, love that.
All right, we'll get to that in a minute. Rod Hannafy, you've been suggesting for some time now we talk to an interesting bloke, Senator Glenn Sterle, Labor Senator for Western Australia in the Australian Parliament, also Deputy Labor Senator for the federal electorates of Durack and O'Connor. Interesting bloke. As a young man, he grew up in public housing in Langford. He saw and learnt the value of hard work reflected through his parents. And his dad was a truck driver and his mum was a nurse. And there's a story here because he is saying that he's had a gutful of hearing stories of drivers being fined for simple spelling mistakes, for example, in their work diaries. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome West Australian Senator Glenn Sterle to Truckee Tuesday. Senator, g'day.
G'day, Rod. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Of course, too. Glenn did a Senate inquiry into the industry, Luke, and he is currently the chair of the Heavy Vehicle Rest Area Steering Committee, which I'm a member. Glenn's the chair. There are 5 drivers. As an industry, we're very disappointed in the Heavy Vehicle National Review. We sought to change it fairly, and I think the industry is very disappointed in what we're going to finally get. They've listened to the wrong people. And, of course, the other thing is that we are losing drivers. I don't think we're recognised for what we do.
Senator Glenn Sterle, jump in, please.
No worries. Thanks, Luca. I still run road trains up to and my son is a long-distance road train operator as well. I will say I actually feel sorry for the federal minister in this space, because the argument or the conversations around transport portfolios when they all get together, the ITM, the Infrastructure and Transport Ministers meetings, has been hijacked by the police ministers, by road safety advocates. When we're talking about things to do with trucks, it should be, or transport, people who have actually got skin in the game and do know what they're talking about. Also, I can't let this one go. Look, there's some very nice at the NTC, but I don't know what the hell they do. The now government, while in opposition, had earmarked $80 million to be put aside to construct rest areas, heavy vehicle rest areas. When in government, that increased to $140 million. But the important thing there was that I was insistent that we must have a committee made up of people who know what they're talking about, that have or will sleep in truck bays. Hence the your intro there, Rob, when you were talking about the makeup of the committee. For the listeners out there, there's a fair bit of cynicism. But what we have to do here is we have to get input or recommendations for co-funding as well from the states or the shires. I will say we've had some really good projects come to us, and I think the majority of them we've ticked off on, but we can't suggest what those projects are because the state government and the local councils have to do 50% funding. If it was up to us 10 sitting around the table, the $140 million would have been allocated in the first meeting, wouldn't it, Rod?
Nearly.
That's right. So anyway, I'm happy to say that we, yesterday's Heavy Vehicle Rest Area Committee meeting, that 3 projects are now underway. They're in construction. Saying that too, I had a bad habit of saying, well, it could be hard, just get a dozer out and knock over a few trees and put some bitumen out there and chuck a toilet in there. Well, yeah, it sounds pretty easy, but there's a fair bit of stuff we have to go through. So it's starting to take shape. Some of the states have been more active than others. There is one state that, I think they're still part of the Commonwealth, but anyway, Rod knows what I'm talking about there. Hopefully the next meeting, and I can't say too much at this stage, but the committee has requested that we meet political leaders like ministers and their staff, invite them to our next meeting so we can actually have a conversation with them saying, look, we really need, particularly on our major freight routes, a lot more suggestions. I'll just say it like that.
So then your next program, Glenn, what you're about to pursue now?
Right, thanks, Rod. The worst kept secret in our industry, and it is a boil that needs to be lanced, is the use of ABNs, sham contracting. And what's really, look, it's been around forever. Everyone knows about it. There is no one in the industry that doesn't know what we're talking about. So, Luke, for your listeners out there too, as Rod and I know, sham contracting is when a owner of trucks or a company enlists a not so honourable accountant and entices drivers to go and get an ABN to get paid under that ABN, which means they are, for taxation purposes, a contractor. So the company supplies the truck, as everyone knows. The driver with his ABN or her ABN gets in it, thinks that they're some sort of entrepreneur where they get paid a flat hourly rate. And I will tell you, I know for facts that $40 is not out of the realms of possibility. And I was informed by a friend in WA last week, there are a number of them working around Perth on less than $40 an hour. Of course, with that $40 an hour, no taxation, no workers' compensation, no holiday pay, no superannuation, blah, blah, blah. Now, I do know, and I cannot identify, I had a phone call from a lady a number of years ago. She was so distressed. She was working for a maggoty, grubby employer in Western Australia. Her husband was driving for this lowlife who had paid him on an ABN. And that was all fine until the taxation department caught up with them and they lost their house. But she was that embarrassed and traumatised that she promised me not to mention their name and the company's name, of which I promised her I wouldn't. And I don't think that would be a one-off.
You know, it's funny you should mention that, Senator, because my son, for many years, had to get an ABN and he was working for a tradie, right? My son's a tradie. and he was told to get an ABN, so his employer didn't have to pay everything you just said, all his entitlements. But he was working 100% for this bloke. I thought the figure 80% comes into my mind, but you'll correct me. But I said to him at the time, the income you're earning is 100% from this bloke who's put you on as a contractor.
Yeah. So look, and it's worse. Look, this is where the very it's a fuzzy line with the ATO. Trying to get sense out of the ATO in the Senate inquiry that I did about 4 or 5 years ago, they were absolutely of no help. But and I understand with your tradie, your son's probably got his tools and that's in his ute, and that's it. With the trucking, it's worse. It is very clear cut. It's sham contracting because you cannot contract your arms unless you do not supply the truck. You don't. It's not your truck. It's not your tool of trade. It is completely and utterly illegal. So what I did too, and I informed Rob and the crew yesterday, and I've also said this in big rigs, I have written to the ATO. I have requested from the ATO a dedicated transport task force stroke, whatever they want to call it, to get out there and just hear me out on a number of reasons why. Not only are drivers getting absolutely ripped off, and when they do get caught up and audited by the taxation office, they're going to be in a world of pain. Not only is that happening, there are foreign drivers being exploited on this, absolutely. And there's another argument around exploitation of foreign workers in the foreign visa system. But there is massive tax avoidance within the road transport industry, and I have figures on my desk in Canberra that were given to me yesterday. And I hadn't seen the report from the ATO. And they're saying the Australian road transport industry 3 years ago was number 7 in the list of the dark economies within Australia, being, tax avoidance, getting paid by cash, operating sham contracting, ABNs and all that. Now we're proudly at number 4 and rising. So not only is there massive tax avoidance, but by unscrupulous operators convincing or engaging drivers on ABNs, they are driving the rates down in the marketplace. We are now watching companies, reputable companies, the mid-tier companies, forget about the big ones like Scott's that have gone backside up, who are just shutting down. And they've not gone broke. They're just closing their doors. The drivers are getting their entitlements. They're cleaning up all what they owe. And the gear is going off to auction. This is an absolute catastrophe. This is unspeakable that this can happen in this nation because the taxation department, in my humble opinion, needs to get out there and absolutely, for all the reasons I've listed, go out there and clamp down on this. And I'm a firm believer. They start nailing this unscrupulous behaviour, the industry will clean up very, very quickly.
It's Rod Hannafy. It must be so refreshing to have someone, a voice in the federal parliament that has some serious skin in the game. Senator, I wanted to talk to you about how we encourage more young Australians to take up the trade, or it's a profession, the profession. Rod and I have been talking for years about how a lot of truckies are leaving the industry. It's hard work. It's difficult on families if you're long haul. The bureaucracy and the red tape you've got to go through, and the massive fines if there's an innocent mistake, which I mentioned in my introduction. And yet, if we run out of truckies, our supermarket shelves are going to be empty. Does anyone realise this? Now, while we're all up at stupid o'clock, can we just talk about how rats always seem to wait until the middle of the night to make their move? You're finally drifting off after a long shift, and then they're doing laps in your roof and behind your walls as if it's Bathurst. Now, we've been using the Pestrol rodent-free Max for many years now. I've known Andrew Fennell, the owner of Pestrol, for 20 years. And all you do is you plug the thing in, bang, eviction notice served on rats and mice. And there's no blood, there's no guts, no traps, just science doing its job while you sleep like a log. And because I know you're thinking, yes, it's safe for pets, safe for the kids, and it runs 24/7, So you don't have to. It's $139. It comes with a 100-day money-back guarantee and a 2-year warranty, which is longer than half the appliances in my kitchen. Get it at Pestrol, Pestrol, pestrol.com.au, or call 1-800-338888, 1-800-338888, and tell them I sent you. Links are in the show notes. It concerns me as a consumer, right?
Yes. Now, quickly, the other thing with the ATO certainly audited a lot of truck drivers and targeted us for minuscule things, and yet they've ignored this big problem. That's something that we've got to recognise, because they put us down as a bad industry before, but they've targeted the wrong part of the industry because of, we claim how many days away, and I think about, 4 or 5 years ago, Glenn, they doubled the parliamentary allowance and they tried to halve ours, and we're the poor buggers out here on the side of the road trying to get a decent meal and stay safe. Even during COVID, we were treated pretty badly during that.
Yep.
But we're looking at an apprenticeship scheme. It's something that's been needed for so long. There are trials up now. We hope that will become national. We have had at least this HVNL review, but it hasn't taken away those ridiculous fines and penalties. And we want to be safe. We are happy with a fine or a penalty for someone who does something wrong that impacts road safety, their own or anybody else's. Because there is not a truck driver I know who goes to work to have an accident. There's not a truck driver I know who wants to work beyond ridiculous hours. And here we are talking about those that are being put in that position under the sham contracting, and they are being made to work long hours for very little pay, and that brings the whole industry down. And all we can do is seek support from the government. We have had the closing loopholes bill got up. That's going to help some people. But those people that avoid the law, those people that are acting outside of it, we don't want them as part of the industry. And we're not talking about where they come from, Luke. We're not talking about any particular group. We're talking about those in the industry who are abusing their drivers, who are cheating the system and dragging the industry down. And I've got to say, mate, I've tried to raise this, and I don't even think my family at sometimes will agree. People don't recognise what we give up out of our life to spend 6 days a week or, a fortnight at a time living in a truck with no toilets and no rest areas and no facilities and no decent food. It's certainly getting harder to get. And we do that so that people can have a decent life. And all we ask is reasonable and some empathy from those people so that we can do our job safely as well. And we've got to educate them about sharing the road with trucks. You'll get sick of me saying that over time, Luke. We've been through that one as well. But Glenn's in a position where he can have a say, he can do so and raise these issues, and we hope that we will not only help the industry and do our job better and safer, but we will save people's lives on the road.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a question or a statement. Rod, you need to get into the Parliament. But Senator Glenn Stirl.
So, look, thank you. And Rod, I love your passion, mate. I just want to quote this, that when I came off the road and became an organiser with the TWU, I moved into a completely different circle rather than being locked in a sort of 6x6 fiberglass box. I actually had to get out there and talk to people, and a lot of those people were government officials. What they've been telling us for all these years, in the last 30-odd years in my other capacities, that every 15 to 20 years our transport task doubles as a nation. Well, they're damn right. But I'll tell you what, we're not keeping up with it. And this is not a new thing. We haven't been keeping up with it for years. I know when I first started in the industry, coming out of school in the mid-70s, we were casual for a couple of years because you just couldn't get made permanent, not because they didn't want you as a permanent, because the supply and demand was the other way around. Now we're the complete opposite. And it's all very well, this goes for all facets of transport, road, rail, sea. I won't talk about air, but the reason why I don't talk about air because that's overseas stuff, a lot of that mainly. But road, rail and sea, we're not keeping up. We can't attract young people to our industry. And I just want to share this one, and I've been batting on about this for years. We did have First, to just clarify, we did have a round table in Canberra I held last year in October, 37 industry leaders, and there's a lot of work still to be done around that, chasing dollars, chasing recognition, and that's now reactivating. We had a couple of elections come in the way, or state elections and federal elections, but we're rolling up the sleeves and getting back into work in that. But I asked this question. Now, I want to go back to, and look, it was 2019 election, and I remember the ATA had got into the Prime Minister's ear in the election period to suggest he should announce getting 16-year-olds training in forklifts. Well, the place erupted. All the bedwetters came up from everywhere, all the non-transport experts, very poorly handled, just a complete waste of time and energy. And, of course, everyone's too scared to talk about that. I've been on about this for years. How the hell can we put a 16-year-old in an aeroplane, they can fly that, but they can't start learning to operate a forklift with a fully qualified trainer at their hip? And you know what? No one's doing a thing to address that. Now, that's not the panacea. It's not the one bullet that's going to fix it. But look, I put this to you and to your listeners.
Yeah.
How many 16-year-old kids would actually have a bit of a buzz with a steering wheel in their hand, learning a vocation at a very young age the right way and actually getting paid to do it, and getting paid quite handsomely if you're working for the right company?
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. They'd love it. And I think there are too many kids staying in school too long who aren't academic, but they are clever and they want to learn and they want to earn some money. And that goes for the building industry as well. Another topic, but you with me?
Sure. Look, mate, I spent the early 70s, staring out the classroom at Thornley High School thinking, how the hell can I get out of here? And I say this quite proudly, I never left school. Luke, I damn well escaped. But you're dead right, mate. But 2025, we can't get workers anywhere. It's now time to rip the Band-Aid off this festering wound. We've got to start talking about it. We've got to start doing something. Oh, hang on, talk about it. Well, actually, we don't even talk much about getting kids at 16-year-olds getting into forklifts for proper training. The industry is trying everything it can, but it's time for the pollies now to actually set aside and say to the industry, what the hell can we do to fix this? And this is hence why I had the roundtable in Canberra last week. The stumbling blocks of the states, and I'm not just passing the buck. Everyone knows, and when it comes to transport and road transport and training and all that sort of stuff, federally we dish the money out, federally we set the standards, then the states allocate. So we're on to that. We're actually on to that. But also there's another a dark corner. And this came out loud and clear at the round table, and I will start the conversation because this is another problem within our industry. Every single industry leader from road transport in this nation wants to see the trucks and buses, let's not forget the buses as well, they're in crisis trying to find people, bus industry, with fully qualified drivers who come to work, fit for duty, go home, get remunerated handsomely for their effort, and other road users are safe. Well, we've got a problem in this nation with the exploitation of the visa system, and I'm going to lead the charge. The first person that comes at me with a racist comment that's going to get thrown back at them at 100 million miles an hour. We are losing drivers on the road. We are losing foreign drivers on the road. The industry damn well knows that there is sham operators in transport and training. We all know that. Every state can tell a story, yet no one wants to talk about it. Well,
okay. Well, we've talked about it a lot, and I know, Senator, you've got to go soon. But Rod, in our years together on radio and now on this podcast, when we used to take calls, so many truckies would complain about the quality of the training that a lot of foreign drivers go through to get their licenses. Now, I'm not going to pick on one particular race, but this was a complaint, and I don't know if it's a legitimate point. But Rod, you'll back me up. We used to get callers saying, there are driving schools that look after their particular folk, and they're passing people who have paid the money, and they're not qualified, and their command of English is poor, and they're getting into trouble on the roads. You hear that all the time. So is that tightened up to your? Has it tightened up sufficiently to your standard?
Glenn's aware of things, and there were shams not only in that way, but there were those who virtually bypassed the licensing system altogether. Now, South Australia at the moment is the only state that has said they will not allow any overseas driver a heavy combination or a multi-combination licence without testing. In the past, people came in and they said, I drive big trucks, and they were given an MC licence and let loose on the road. Now, that horse has bolted. They're out there. We hope they've learnt. We hope that someone's guided them and given them the knowledge that they need. But we know that many didn't get it. They were sent out there to learn, some by mistake, some by default, some, I'm sure, even lost their lives or cost the lives of others because they were allowed on the road without passing our testing regime.
Yep.
Now, we want to improve that regime. We want to make it better and have better drivers. But many people got through. We have, at this stage, started to fix that. I don't think we've solved it, but that's another part of the problem, isn't it, Glenn?
Yes, absolutely. You're damn right. And can I just stress this too? This is not having a crack at foreign drivers. We want them to come to this country. We want them to have a fantastic life and a brilliantly paying job, and we want them to be safe. We don't want them exploited. And not only that, every time there is a death on our roads, if any other industry had the amount of deaths in their workplace as we do on our roads, there would have been 100 royal commissions and God knows what else support. But unfortunately, we are just part of doing business. It's got to stop.
Yeah, I love it that these Senate inquiries, I love it how when you're looking into the trucking industry, you have a group together that's called a steering committee. I just love that. Anyway, I do love that. Senator, before you go, I've got to mention this. It's a story that has touched the hearts of so many Australians. Last Friday, there were more than 80 trucks carrying 6,000 bales of hay and straw. They left WA, last Friday, and they're bound for drought-stricken South Australia. It's good to see, isn't it?
It is. It's fantastic. And you know what?
And who do you think? And who do you think's driving it? They're truck drivers.
Yep, that's exactly right. You know, and I've just spent 47 years in and around the industry. You know, some of the most generous people you will meet is in the trucking industry. When there's national catastrophes and all that, who's always first there? Oh, first responders, but who's the first industry there and who's the last to leave? It's us. It's the trucking industry. And we are everything. We're every part of society. It's just a shame we don't get recognised as that important cog in everything that we do. And as the old saying goes, that everything, is delivered on the back of a truck, except the baby. In most cases.
Well, it's called the Convoy of Compassion. And as I say, those trucks left WA. What can you tell us about it? It's a good story. Not the drought part. In fact, they're getting rain as we record this in South Australia now. But it shows a lot of compassion, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, it does, and good on them. I wasn't aware of that, Luke. That's the first I've heard of it. I've been in Canberra since last Sunday week. So
you're in the bubble.
Yeah.
You're in the bubble, Senator.
Look, I'm sorry, I did not do that. But believe it or not, mate, there's been a lot going on, but I did not know that.
Okay, we see you had a very entertaining day last Friday in the Senate with Michaela Cash and Penny Wong going at it over north of the country. That was... I missed that. Go and find it.
I will stand by and respect Senator Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, who every day has lived and breathed reconciliation in this country. Her father is white. Her mother is black.
It's not for today's discussion, but it was world-class entertainment. Oh, my God.
I didn't know. I'd heard of it, but I had walked out the Senate chamber before that. I had gone...
Oh, you're kidding.
No, I'd gone... No, it happens all the time, mate.
Do you want to know something?
Yeah, fill me in.
In 1978, I went to a 2GB premiere of The Deer Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
And I was so bored I left at interval, and the best part of the movie was still to come. You've done a Luke Boner Deer Hunter.
Mate, I've done that on a number of occasions. I've walked out thinking, well, this is just an ordinary run-of-the-day conversation that goes on in this place.
Oh, you missed an absolute cracker.
Yes.
You missed an absolute cracker in the Senate on Friday.
I'll have to go and find it.
Rod, I'll let you wrap up. What would you like to say?
So, Glenn, there's a lot to do. We really need lots of drivers to support it. And it's a bit like the steering committee, mate. There's a few of us there. We're very passionate. We're trying to do our best. We've got some keyboard warriors that say nothing will change, and you blokes are sitting there doing nothing. Well, geez, mate, that's not the case. I'd certainly like you to back that up because we want them to know that we're trying. I appreciate your efforts, mate, and we've got a long way to go, but we need people to be involved. Now, if every truck driver in Australia was a member of the NRFA or the TWU or NatRoad, I don't care what association they join, but if they joined one of them, we would have a bigger voice. We would be able to give that voice to you to get more done. And sitting on your bum in the truck, you've discussed it, Luke. It's hard. It's getting harder in some ways, but we can make change. Just Glenn and I can't do it alone, and the other few that are doing it. And we want people to do the right thing. We've got to find a way to encourage other drivers to recognise that and be a part of it and be a part of that change. And, mate, I won't give up, and I know Glenn won't. And thanks for your time, Glenn, and I appreciate your efforts.
Rod, you're a champion, mate, and as you said, mate, the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah, just more oil. Senator, you have been absolutely outstanding. I don't care what party someone belongs to. If they talk common sense, which you have today, I want to hear more of it. Can we invite you back?
Luke, at any time. I'd be honoured.
Mate, that was sensational. Thank you so much.
No, look, thanks very much, mate. And look, I'd say this with all honesty. Rob will tell you, mate, I attend every trucking function that I'm invited to. Some I double up I can't get to. Finally, I will say this, we are starting to get recognition. You don't see what goes on behind the scenes. We're actually, taking industry leaders from other states to meet ministers. We're breaking the defensive wall down brick by brick. We got a long, long way to go, mate. We need state and we need federal governments to absolutely consult at a far greater rate. To which level, thanks, Rod. And that's not attacking the ministers, because when I speak to the ministers, they think their bureaucrats are doing the job. And I will say this, it's easy to throw rocks, and I don't care if it's Labor or Liberal, it's easy to throw rocks at the ministers, but unless you actually get in their face and tell them what is happening, they think it's being done. And this is hence, mate, my dislike of the NTC and Ausroads. But anyway.
Senator, thank you so much.
Thanks, Luke. Good on you. Anytime. All right, Rod, take care, mate, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Glenn. Cheers,
Thanks,
mate.
guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Rod, we've spoken over the years about an amazing woman, Ash Anderson, who teaches women to drive. She's got this... She's got this famous truck. It's called the Bubble Gum Bandit. And she's with the Dynamic Truck Company, and she's online on Truckee Tuesday here on Bonafide. Ash Anderson, come on down.
Hello, how are you guys?
We're great. Rod, people will see this, Kelsey, on our Facebook?
Well, it's on Ash's Facebook.
It's on Ash's Facebook. She posted a video, and she has a student at the wheel, Rod, who was trying to merge. And another truckie, B-double, crossed the lanes and prevented her student from merging. The student had to apply heavy brakes, and the footage is, well, it's frightening.
Ash, do you want to tell us, what was happening in the cab? Tell us what happened.
If you can paint a word picture for people who are listening.
Well, it was really quite simple. We'd entered the freeway merge. We had a really great gap. My student was slowly picking up speed, which a lot of people jumped down my throat about online. You can't do 100 until you're at that 100 sign. I teach my students how to follow the rules because I want them to be successful. So anyway, she was at about 80 Ks when we were nearly ready to merge. And the truck and dog driver, who I also want to say had an uncovered load, fully exposed. So that's another thing that annoyed me. He's come from the right-hand lane to the left, and there's only 2 lanes. So, people are trying to say that he didn't see or whatever. He was trying to let someone else overtake him. Regardless, he came from the right hand to the left just as we were about to actually make that merge. And that forced us down to, I think, 40 Ks right at the end of the merge.
So he was in the right-hand lane with no one else in the left. You were about to merge into an empty lane. He was in the right, but he moved from the right in the left virtually to be a prick.
In my opinion, yeah. However, to add on to that, because I'll maintain my professionalism here, if you have a look through the comments of that post, he was seen drag racing his mate from the same company a little bit further down the highway and a little bit further on the highway.
You just heard me talking to Glenn, and that's where I said, at the moment, there's a lot of truckies out there feeling, disheartened and disillusioned and not happy. And I've got to try and find a way, we as the industry, to make them recognise that when they do that sort of stupid shit, and that's what it is,
Yeah.
everybody sees the bad truckie. Now, for the next 2 months, everybody's going to talk about this one bloke who just did the wrong thing because he wanted to, and they're not going to see the other 99 out of every 100 truckies who simply do their job to get home safe to a family they don't see enough of. Now, that bloke might be a bad bloke. There are bad truckies, there are bad taxi drivers, there are bad taxidermists, and there are bad lawyers. All of those other people only get seen by the people they deal with. We're on the highway, we're visible. I'm sure that truck had its logo on it. You said he went and did another stupid thing down the road. Now, Ash, you and I, you can't teach everyone perfect, and I can't drive every truck. None of us are perfect. We make mistakes. We're human people. But we're out on the road. The one thing we can't do is get it recognised as our workplace, because maybe then we could make it a bit safer and teach people properly to share the road with trucks. But when people do the wrong thing like that bloke, we are all the worst on earth, and they simply don't recognise how much harm they do to everybody. Would you agree, Ash?
Absolutely. And that's part of the contributing factor to the old, a mud carter. And I did go on to post on Facebook later a couple of pictures of the mud carter trucks I'd driven, just to say, like, hey, I'm not anti-mud carter. I don't hate mud carters. I don't agree with that. But, that particular person was a flop.
Just quickly, what is a mud carter?
Tipper driver, yeah. A mud carter is a tipper driver. Now, there's a lot of tippers that do grain and all sorts of other products, but it's a bit like we talk about turd herders and tanker wankers. Everybody's got a nickname. So a mud carter is generally a local tipper and dog driver. And you did say B-double at the start, Luke, so I said it was a truck and dog, not a B-double.
What's the difference?
Yeah, he was a truck and dog.
What's that?
The difference
Can I get you in my truck? One's bigger than the other, that'll do.
Yeah, truck and dog is a rigid towing a trailer.
Ash, your bubblegum bandit, is it clearly marked that it's a learner? Is it clearly marked that you've got someone who's under instructions?
In Queensland, we don't have to say driver under instruction, but I do have extra large, bright yellow L plates, front, back, and both sides on the doors.
Clear.
Yeah.
So yes,
because I've seen photos of the bubblegum bandit, and it's amazing. It's my favourite truck I've ever seen in my life.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, it's very clearly a learning truck.
It's clearly marked.
It does also say dynamic truck school as well.
Ash, do you think there are enough qualified instructors?
Enough driving instructors?
Qualified, safe driving instructors that teach the right thing?
Tough question.
We've been talking about getting young people into the industry and teaching people from overseas correctly.
There is not enough, and in 5 years, 10 years, like if we're in a critical shortage of truck drivers now and driving instructors, it is about to go to the pits in 5 years. And it's a very stressful thought.
Yeah. Well, one thing I did see in the comments, Ash, was people like praising you as well for your great instruction in that like high stress moment. You did a great job in there.
You were cool.
Yeah. How did because that must be a lot of pressure for you in those situations.
I'd love you to wear one of those watches that can show your heart rate.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I want to know.
You know what? I should go back and have a look at my stats on that day.
Yeah, could you?
For me, like, I've driven a lot of things, and like coming from fuel tankers, liquid bitumen, I've done the high stress truck driving as a driver. So to me, bobtailing around in a prime mover's pretty chill. And the people I have in my truck, I mean, Tara, the student that day, she's actually doing a HC upgrade. So she's been driving a body truck, an actual full-size rigid vehicle for some time. So she and I, we were just having a bit of a cruise. Her getting used to my truck in preparation to go for her HC on Monday. So she was, that was probably a benefit to the situation as well, was that she didn't panic either.
Yeah, she's cool.
But there are people who do panic under that. And there are, day in, day out, all we truckies, we bang on about the cars that do the stupid things. There is also the trucks that do the stupid things, but it's not as common as the cars because the cars don't have the understanding of what it takes to be a truck driver or how to drive a truck. So there is always something dangerous. And as long as you are looking ahead and continuously scanning and paying attention, which I'm very good at doing while having a conversation.
Yeah.
I can focus on all those things and pay attention. And if you watch any of those videos, you see my head doesn't stop moving.
No, it
my
doesn't.
eyes don't stop going. I am processing everything at all times to mitigate those risks. So staying calm when you're well prepared, your reactions are quick, fast, and pretty chill.
Well, I've got to tell you this, Ash. I've taught 3 children to drive. My daughter, it was a nightmare. Absolutely not. You were so cool. Do you know what? If you weren't doing what you were doing, you could be working for the bomb squad.
Yeah, I do thrive under pressure, I've got to be honest. I'm well known for that reputation amongst friends and family.
Yeah.
You've got a crisis, you ring Ash, she gets it sorted.
Have you had many other scary moments? Rod, have you had moments like that? Is this a regular occurrence for you when you're teaching?
Yeah. I actually feel like it's worse nowadays.
Really?
I don't know, maybe if it's just because it's my truck and I own it, that I'm getting a bit more angry about things and the near misses that these cars do. So maybe it's not worse. Maybe it's just more, I'm a bit more protective of my vehicle now than I ever have been as a company employee.
It is worse because A, there is more traffic. B, the roads aren't up to the standard. And C, we don't teach people to share the road with trucks, and we've discussed there is a lack of some of the training in truck drivers, which we're trying to address. And look, there isn't a driver that's doing, even local's just as busy as you say. You can have people doing silly things there as well as doing interstate, but it's not recognised that. I honestly think, Luke, we get blamed when there's an accident. We discussed it. It's a truck crash that implies guilt by default. And yet, honestly, I think we save more lives because we are scanning, because we are anticipating, because we think, geez, that car's weaving a bit, I'm just going to give him a bit more room. And no one recognises how many lives we save, but we get blamed for the ones that we don't. And yet, of course, the other thing is they don't recognise the effect it's going to have on that driver or his family, because there have been people involved in truck crashes involving a truck where it was nothing to do with them, that the car had made the mistake. We know that's the majority of those fatal crashes are the fault of the car, and yet that truckie's got to live with that for the rest of his life. Truckies that have pulled people out of burning vehicles, have pulled up to help others. And we want every person, whether you drive a car, a bicycle, a truck or a moped, to get home safe. And that's why we're all here talking about it now. And look, Ash, I appreciate your efforts, mate. It's good to see that people recognise we need more women drivers. It's good to see that you're teaching them the right thing as well. I certainly wish you all the best. And I hope your student does well and gets her upgrade, mate. But thanks for your efforts and for putting this up. We don't want people to recognise us as bad, but we want people to recognise we are human, and if they do the right thing, we're all going to get home safe if we keep trying harder.
Absolutely.
Ash Anderson, lovely to meet you again. I think we've spoken before on Triple M.
Yeah, no, we spoke on this podcast.
We spoke on this podcast. God, hang on, I'll do that again.
Yeah, come on, Luke. Jeez. Try again. Pop it out, you'll be right.
Actually, leave that in, Kelsey.
I will.
Ash Anderson, lovely to talk to you again.
Thanks, guys. I'll chat to you next time.
Fascinating conversation with 2 fascinating people on today's Truckee Tuesday. Any feedback, please let us know. And now, on Truckee Tuesday, right across Australia and around the world, on the Bonafide podcast, it's time for Rod's Roving Road Riddle. Applause, insert there. Rod, what was your question last week?
The question is, what looks like a road train? It has the combined parts of a road train, and it drives like a road train, but it's not a road train. What's it called?
A mud carter.
A turd herder.
A mud carter could drive one of these, but he doesn't.
Tell Kelsey, a turd herder is livestock.
That's right, yes. I'm actually looking at a B-triple livestock truck parked in front of me at the enormous large village of Coolabah. And there's only me and the buses that just did a change over here. I'm on my way to Burke in a road train because with the road train, quickly, Luke, I've got 2 trailers in a normal road train. There's 2 other trucks going out with 2 trailers in a normal road train. When they get to Burke, they will hook up what's called a Type 2, and it will be a triple road train. So they will each have 3 trailers on at 53.5 metres, but we're not allowed to do that east of Burt, so I've got to get the other 2 out there.
So what's the answer to the question?
The answer is an A double.
Hey,
so it looks like a road train, but it's 30 metres long, not 36.5, and it's operated under PBS, performance-based standards. So it's got to have all the whiz-bang and the EBS brakes and those sorts of things. But anybody looking at it down the road, it'll have a long vehicle sign on the rear. It'll still have a dolly, a converter dolly. That's what makes it look like a road train. But because it's only 30 metres long, it has a long vehicle sign. Anything over 30 metres will go to road train.
And, of course, if you are going to spend a long time on the road away from home, you can get a blow-up dolly.
Thank God I've never seen any of them in a truck. Never.
And then if there's 2 big ones, it could be the Dolly Parton.
We're done.
The Dolly Parton. Kelsey, did anyone get it right?
Yeah. I think it was Nathan. I might have forgotten that name, but yes, somebody did get that right.
Okay, Rod, we need another question to keep people thinking for the week. I want Rod's roving road riddle question number 2.
Okay, so those out there who drive trucks, we did a survey years ago of drivers asking them what is the most important thing to teach car drivers. Now, we have the Truckies Top 10 tips for sharing the road. I want someone to tell me what the number 1 tip is, the thing that most drivers said caused most trouble and that we need to teach car drivers to share the road safely with trucks. What's tip number 1?
Tip number 1 for question number 2.
Allow space.
That's part of it, but that's not the whole answer. So you only get a half a point, Kel. You can have a half
there you go. There's a
actually, you're a spoiler.
No, I just gave a hint.
You're a spoiler. Rod Hannafy, a fascinating Truckie Tuesday. Thank you so much.
Cheers, mate. I've got to get back on the road. Safe travelling to all, as always.
Thank you so much for listening. Our downloads or uploads or likes or whatever it is, I have no idea what it is. Kelsey tells me they're growing all the time. Can you help us make it grow? Spread the word and let's talk soon. Okay, now listen, before you go, a quick reminder, winter doesn't have to walk all over you. Get on the front foot. Nature Bee's Power Pollen. It is your winter defense kit. More energy, immune support, nutrients, antioxidants, and it's all in one beautiful little golden capsule. And you don't need to swallow the capsules whole either. I mean, you can just sprinkle it on your breakfast, on your porridge, in your smoothies, in your juice. Power Pollen's sweet, nutty taste is both a flavour and an energy boost. And it's proof that it's just Mother Nature. You can grab a 6-month supply for $160, and they're throwing in an extra month and 2 bars of their famous pollen and honey soap for free. Comes with a money-back guarantee, otherwise I wouldn't endorse it, and I've been taking it since the year 2000. Click the link in the description and order yours today and say goodbye to winter blues. Nature Bee, helping you stay on top of winter and not under it. And a big thanks to Nature Bee for powering up another bona fide episode. Look, let's wrap it up with my last piece of wisdom. It's rodent related. Don't lose sleep over things that scurry in your roof and behind your walls. All you've got to do is plug in Pestrol's rodent-free Max and let it do the worrying. It's $139. It comes with a 100-day money-back guarantee, a 2-year warranty, and you know what? I'll take the odds. Head to pestrol.com.au or call 1-800-338888, 1-800-33-8888. Pestrol. Problem solved. And the links are in the description.